We're live? We are live. Okay. What's going on, everybody? We've already got our regulars in here. I see Big Bear, Mr. Will, Doug Narden, Fred Schmidt, Steve Pistol, Vinny. We have a crew of probably 150, 200 people that are just there on every live, right? And you guys, I don't have to introduce Steve to you. He's like Mr. TV. You're like a celebrity. You're like a hotshot.
More of a cavalier, maybe a celebrity Eurosport. That's a Chevy joke, from the old days. But anyway, no, it's a pleasure to have automotive friends, and everywhere you go with car people, you have instant friends, which is great. When I was a 15-year-old kid, hey, do you have M&H's or Hoosiers on that? Get out of here, kid. You know what I mean? It's nice to have instant friends, and that's wonderful. It's something I never would have thought I'd have, and it's great.
Well, that's what you got here. We got a lot of instant friends. They're all of the same basic, the same basic mentality. But you and I we're both like nerds. Like you, right? People look at me like, oh, he's a mechanic. No, I'm a nerd. I geek out over the stupidest things. I know that you're the same way.
Yeah. Details.
Exactly.
And I'm 57, going on 9, according to my
right.
But we're still friends, by the way. No horror. But I remember back, I was born in 1964, and in 74, I'm 10 years old, and I remember my mom bought a new Dodge Colt, and being painfully aware that there might have been a Super Bee or a Charger Daytona on that same Dodge dealership floor a few years earlier. So the gas crunch in 73, 4, 5, 6, I was painfully aware. I remember even odd plate number days getting 5 gallons of gas. It was like the world was ending. And I found a stack of old Superstock and High Performance Cars magazine with Marty Shore, Cliff Dormer, and Ehrenberg. Well, not Ehrenberg, not yet, but he came later. But all those guys, and I says, wow, this is how cars used to be. Not Pinto Pony MPGs and the new Honda Civic and the Volkswagen Rabbit in brown, typically. And, and I said, wow, muscle cars. No, so basically at age 10, 1974, I became a student of the past. And since then, it's stuck, but I will say this, that the good old days are now. In 1984, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, when you were writing about 5-liter Mustangs, in things like this, which I
look at that.
Yeah, I got to say, Tony DeFeo, holy shit. And it's like a thing where, right here it is. There's banging gears with Tony right there.
Tony used to have hair.
Yeah. I would absorb these magazines, and to me. But I will say back then, when the 5.0 had 225 horsepower and 330 foot-pound, whatever it was, that little Ram manifold. Well, cool. I never thought we'd see Hellcats, ZR1s, ZL1s. Cobras, Coyotes, Voodoos, holy, and 8,000 RPM 5-liter or 5.2 GT500 that makes the original solid lifter K code look like a slow junk car. Not that it is, but the good old days are right now. I really think that we're in a fantastic place. It's great to have all. I kind of feel like they did it for me, bringing the Hemi back. You know what I mean? So.
I agree with you, and I disagree at the same time. Because the numbers are amazing today. If you're only looking at statistics, right? Horsepower, 0 to 60 is quarter mile times, top ends, all that, right? If you're only looking at the numbers, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is like, there's never been anything like this. And back in those days, we couldn't even fathom anything like that was going on right now. Yeah. But on the flip side, the way I see it is that these newer cars are just soulless. Like when we were, we're the same. I'm a couple of years older than you. And I know you were probably the same way. Whenever you got a car, it was something you were going to keep forever, even if you didn't keep it forever. As soon as you started on a project, I'm making a life commitment to this thing, right? And I wanted to, whether I keep it or not, I want to be able to keep it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And today's cars, that doesn't exist. Today's cars are an appliance. When your Hellcat is done, you know what I mean? It's done. The hailstorm will take it out.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know. I have to say that I am a Pollyanna optimist whenever I can, because I don't know this. I can see everything. I'm 57, been through a fair amount, and you can see things either positively or negatively. I try to see it in positive as much as I can, even when the house is on fire. Hey, well, at least it's not melting. Whatever I should say.
I understand.
But to me, the computers kind of suck, because you know how much fun I have with computers. We saw this today. We're trying to text and message, all that kind of stuff. But if the computer goes away, well, that's what happens then. But they still have aluminum heads, iron blocks on the Hemis. I guess what's up with the iron blocks already? Chevy and Ford have aluminum, but But
You
yeah,
see, Steve, it's not just one computer; it's 16
right,
computers,
right,
and
right.
they're all completely interconnected. Where it's beyond the scope of the backyard guy, even a
Yeah.
sophisticated backyard guy.
Yeah, there's certain areas that are kind of tough, but I got to say that I go back to 1949, 50 when the flathead guys said, "Oh, these damn rocker arms and push."
Right, right, yeah.
And well, back in '85, this EFI crap. Oh man! But the thing of it is, Uncle Sam, is calling the shots everywhere and all that kind of stuff. Without that infringement, oh yeah, we'd probably still have Hemi cooters and stuff. But the thing is,
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? So I'm like the confirmed. My people who watch my channel know I'm like a confirmed carburetor and conventional ignition guy. But you're sitting right there next to those magazines that I did back in the '80s, and I was all about EFI. And in fact, back then I was doing the 5-liter Mustang thing. I had the IHRE Pure Stock record with the 5-liter Mustang. Right?
Okay.
13. Actually, I blitzed the record. We dropped it from 1390 to 1343,
Yeah.
and that was all with EFI. I was like right there on top. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, you have more of my old magazines than I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to go street racing, and there was a copy of Street and Strip Supercars sitting on the seat next to me. It's like it was like food. No shit. I mean, I'll read those things, and street racing's illegal. Blah blah blah. We did dangerous things safely. Put it like that. You know what I mean? And you guys probably did too. Although burnouts on Wall Street, I don't know, but hey, good for you. It's cool. I'm sure it was safe, but it was cool.
No, actually, we just stopped in the middle of the morning.
Right.
Took over, laid down on the ground in front of the car on Wall Street with the Twin Towers in the background, and I just lit them up and did a burnout over there.
Yeah. So I don't know. The new car thing. I'm glad they're here. Better than not. And so I'm with you. But I mean, they have their. But there's a lot of folks who gut their Hellcats and strip everything out to get them down, and that's kind of cool. It is true that back in the day, if you watch Tulane Blacktop, what's his face, the guy with the GTO Judge, he represented the guy who bought his muscle car, whereas the other guys represented the guy who built theirs. But there's room for both, I figure. And and plus too, when the Hellcats become 3 or 4 fourth owner cars, then I can afford to buy one. So but they'll trickle down. But it is an amazing thing that 5-liter Mustangs. I mean, this performance thing we're in now has lasted, I think, 2 or 3 times. The 1962 to 72 thing that happened the first time. So I was at Hot Rod Magazine from 1998 through '05, and when I first got there, the Ford Romeo 4.6, which was Ford's way of getting high RPM performance with a little engine, and of course the LS comes along. Whoa, hold on! And I did a story one time in Hot Rod called "Who's Jiving Who? The Dyno Don't Lie." And we thought this 300 horsepower LS stuff bullshit. There's no way. We put on chassis dynos. We found most modern cars, with the exception of the Dakota RT and certain other cars, make it the tire what they call it the flywheel. I said, wait a minute, this is serious shit. So it's a good time now. And although, it's frustrating as hell. I have a Volvo B70 wagon in the driveway, which I got for free, by the way. See, in Massachusetts, you have to have a winter beater to sacrifice the salt gods. The good shit goes in the garage, So this Volvo has a frigging electric fuel pump in the tank. It's out right now. I bought another one, and I tested the old one on a bench, and the damn pump worked. I'm like, I didn't want it to whirl, but it worked. So when I put the new pump in, the problem's going to be the same. In other words, it probably has a brain problem. So here we go with that crap. So yes, I feel with the computer stuff. It's like, oh no, without it, we couldn't have what we have, because we have to have clean cars and all that kind of stuff now.
I'm surprised you don't have a vintage daily.
Well, I did for a long time, slant 6 darts and stuff like that. But here in Massachusetts, I grew up in Massachusetts. Was born in New York City, actually, in 1964, and came home in a taxi cab, of all things. My dad grew up in New York City and stuff. My grandfather was an NBC accordionist. He played the accordion for NBC. My grandfather. Yeah. If you Google Charles Magnante, Magnante, you'll see videos from him back in a thing called a Soundy, which was an old jukebox that played videos. Soundy. It's kind of weird. But anyway, he played the accordion with Lawrence Welk, people like that, whatever. And my father grew up in New York City, but he didn't want the kids to grow up in the city. So we moved to rural Massachusetts in '67 when I'm 3. That's kind of where I grew up. But moved to California in 1991, spent 17 years there, and then came back to Massachusetts in 2005 or 6 or 7 or it's been 10, 11 years. So whatever that is, 2009 or 8. And so I'm kind of from both sides of the country, so to speak. I spent 17 years there, but I'm a New Englander, I guess, whatever. But you have to have a winter beater. That's the thing. And so out there, you can have a great car year round, but here you have to have a piece of crap to drive in the winter because everything rusts and it's gone. So that's where that Volvo fits in. But I used to have some slant six darts that I drove out here. I felt guilty in subjecting them to the salt and stuff. So I just then bought a bunch of old Buick Rivieras, 80s, 90s junkers, stuff like that. Run it till it falls apart and get another one for $1,000 and go on.
Yeah, I'm on a Jeep Cherokee Bender now, XJs.
Nothing wrong with that.
I've bought like 3 of them in the last month. I was just like, I'm obsessed with XJs.
Yeah, cool.
So you are just for people who aren't familiar with your background, they only know you from Junkyard Gold, or they only know you from the roadkill things that you were doing. Just give people a quick background in the industry.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, again, born in 1964, grew up in Massachusetts, did some street racing with your magazines, inspiring me a lot of times, seriously, and Gromer, and but that gonzo journalism in the automotive world was what the stuff was all about, and Gromer, but you really lit it off, and Jim Kosks, however I spell that now, Kosk, whatever it is.
I didn't know how to write. My qualification for getting into the magazine business was that I was a street racer.
Yes.
That was it. That was my qualification. That's what they wanted. They wanted a street racer.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to spell. I didn't know how to punctuate. I had no idea what sentence structure or anything. So I literally made up my own punctuation. Jim Kosks, it was a guy that they hired as a copy editor only to fix my work.
Okay.
And then I taught him how to write my way. And then now he's off and it is part of the industry. Neil Van Opry, who was part of that whole Muscle Mustangs and Fast Four thing, he was a buddy of mine from Staten Island. He had a speed shop and I was a street rat, and we got together and and he ended up in the magazines. Evan Smith, Reverend Evan, right? He was another one that we dragged into it. He used to work the starting line in Englishtown. Mm-hmm. Come on, you got to do magazines, and then next thing you know, bam, he's a big shot. Yeah. So yeah, but you worked for Gromer.
Okay, so here's what happened. All right, so after the street racing years, first off, right, my dad says you're going to college, and I'm like, so I did. I graduated from Clark University in Worcester, Mass, 1986. English degree, in other words, path of least resistance degree. My grades were like C's, acting classes, writing classes, business classes, D, barely did it, but the English and stuff, writing and stuff was fun. Anyway, got out in 86, messed with cars till 1990, and then moved to California to either act or write for Hot Rod. That was my 2 goals. So get there in 1991. First thing I do is I call Chrysler Power Magazine, 1991. Hey, hello, Roland Osborne. Hey, Roland, it's a guy from Massachusetts. I like Mopars. Can I come over and work? Sure. We're going to pay you $100 a week. I did that for 3 years. Okay. So it was interesting. If you read Chrysler Power from 1992 through 94 or so, you'll see a lot of my stuff in there, whatever. And it was good times. We actually did paste up with hot wax guns and half tones and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so while I'm there, Cliff Gromer, your editor, I guess, would call and say, hey, Steve, can you do a little tech for Mopar Action? Well, sure. Hey, Roland, can I do this? Yeah, that's fine. I'm not paying enough to say you can't do it. So yeah, so I did some stuff for Gromer. Not so much tech. It was more actually like he sent me the pictures to a Max Wedge clone or something like that.
Car feature.
Yeah, and people with 6-packs, I'd call them up, get the story, and then I'd send it in. And Cliff would give me a byline, which is sweet of him. A couple $100 for the story, whatever it was. I don't know. And then that led to I left Chrysler Power. I went to work for a company called Stage 5 Engineering. Eric Hansen. He makes Hemi heads for wedges and rockers and things for fuel cars.
He ran those heads on the fuel car for a season.
Yeah, good stuff. He's still, I think, still in business. So worked for Eric, drilling, tapping, bushing, all that stuff. I'm not a machinist, but he taught me the basics of machining, and so I did that for him, as a freelance kind of guy for a few years while I was also writing for Cliff. I left Chrysler Power by that point, but that led to Steve Collison from Drag Racing Monthly / Superstock magazine saying, hey, can you do some freelance for me? Sure. So I did some historic things on the Ram Chargers,
and we were working for Collison at the same time.
That's right.
We were in different.
Yeah, I got a call. So Ro McGonigal sees my stuff in Drag Racing Monthly right around probably 1996, 7. Right. And he says, I need a tech editor. So Collison's pissed because Ro called and said, can you come work for me? I said, I'll be there yesterday. Because when I moved to California, act or write for Hot Rod. So he calls me up and boom, I said, yeah. So I ended working for Roland Ro McGonigal at Hot Rod.
Well, he was trying to get me at the same time. I did a couple of stories for him. I did the one with the driving the fuel altered.
Yes, you did.
and he wanted to actually set me up as the East Coast editor in New York City.
Yep.
And just one thing led to another. It just wasn't the thing. I was done with the magazine business by that point.
Okay.
You
I have
know?
to say, I always wondered why you didn't wind up at Peterson. I said to Roe one time, Roe McGonigal, who's to me a legend too, because in 1960,
He is.
there's a six-pack Roadrunner ad where Ronnie Socks, Plymouth, it's a Plymouth ad, where Ronnie Socks and a magazine editor named Roe McGonigal
That's right.
in a six-pack Roadrunner, and they showed how Ronnie could get a 13.1, Roe would get a 13.4, but Ronnie was still Ronnie. But so that's Roe, and my God, he's the guy who wrote the Silver Bullet story about Jimmy Addison's car. So Roe's hiring me. I'm like, holy shit. So I worked for Hot Rod for 7 years. I got to smell Gray Baskerville's farts, which is a tremendous pleasure because he'll let it rip any old time, which is fine. And Gray was a gentle soul and a good man, and passed away, got cancer, and sadly. But anyway, so I'm at Hot Rod for 7 years, contributed to 77 issues. In fact, I was there from August 19th, 1997 through January 20th, 2004. 77 issues, and it was stressful as hell. And I lived in El Monte, and I had a 31-mile commute from there to Wilshire Boulevard, where Peterson offices were. It took 2.5 hours one way. And that's twice a day, 5 days a week. So I discovered Prozac, and I mean, I really did, because, we had good insurance and stuff. And I'm like freaked out to get to the office. I'm all mad, sitting in traffic for 2 hours. And the doctor says, well, try Prozac. I'm like, wait, that's for crazy people, right? Long story short, it was very helpful. It allowed me to keep the job for 7 years. Most people, yeah, Prozac, I mean, it's sponsored to you by Prozac. So, and I don't think anymore, but it was just but it was crazy. And the Peterson thing. But I remember Roe McGonigal said to me, I said, what about the fair? Because he doesn't fly. Is that true?
I don't fly.
You don't fly? Okay, well there you go. Fly. Now I know why Tony never made it to Peterson. Not made it to Peterson, but never.
Well, because I didn't fly, he was going to set me up in an office in New York City.
Wow. Which is what he was, because he was the East Coast guy for Hot Rod and Carcraft in the 70s. Roe was, so he was hip to that. That would have worked. Right. Yeah.
No, well, he was. I guess it was maybe a little rivalry with Collison. So it's like he looked at anything that Steve did as like his Bush League. So if Steve was working with him, he wanted to drag him over there. But he had maybe a good offer. But I didn't like. I was a freelancer and I wanted to stay a freelancer.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing those magazines, I was on payroll for like 2 weeks, and I says, you know what? This ain't gonna work. So I quit my job. I went back to my desk and started paying myself as a freelancer.
Wow.
So all of those magazines I did for CSK and Harris and all of that, that was all freelance.
Yeah.
And the thing with going to work for Peterson and collecting a Peterson check meant that I had to be a company man. I had to sell for it, and it just wasn't there. So I freelanced like maybe for another year or two, and then Collison died in 2000. And when he died, I was like, I'm done, because he was like the last vestige of that.
Of a steady freelance gig.
Well, and plus that passed, because Roe McGonigal and Steve Collison and John Asher and God, I know I'm missing some other guys. All that Carcraft click from like the glory 1970. We were just talking about this last night on another channel. Did a lot
Marlon Davis, a little bit, one of the writers.
The Carcraft magazine from like 1967, 1968 to 1972, 73 was the greatest car magazine in all history.
John Raffa, Terry Cook, those guys.
Yeah, right. Well, Terry Cook left in 70.
Yeah.
But he was all a big part of it. So like I said, when Collison died, it was like my only connection to those days, and I was like, I'm done. Okay. And so that was it. I went to the coffee business. I had coffee houses.
Now you moved from New York down to Tennessee, or did you have coffee in New York too?
Well, I moved here in 2002.
Okay.
And I opened a coffee house in New York City, and then we came down here, and I had a string of them. I had how many did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I had like 4 of them.
Wow. Okay.
That was my night gig. So during the day I did cars.
Yeah.
And at night I ran a coffee house, which was it wasn't like I can explain to you. It was like a European coffee house. Basically, it's a bar for people who don't drink.
Okay. Yeah.
So you had a lot of stoners and a lot of just the intellectual types. It was like Cafe Wa. You know what I'm saying?
The question: did they pay their way, or was it kind of a charity? I mean, what was that like?
It made money, but it was always tenuous.
Yeah.
But I made my money during the day fixing cars. Flipping cars and doing whatever I did with cars. So it didn't really matter.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my experience at Peterson was positive, but it was 7 years. And I remember there was a guy, John Perley Huffman, great writer,
Oh, please.
yeah, and he said, when you leave and become freelance, you'll ask yourself why you waited so long, right? So I'm at Peterson for 7 years, and you become like a cow with 1,000 udders, and it's 1,001 hands pulling on them. You know what I mean? And you just after a while you're burned out, and you're done writing about nitrous systems and stuff, or the annual paint and body issue, and oh my god, the wheel and tire roundup. And when you're at Hot Rod, there was a staff of me, Terry McGeehan, who's a great dude. He's at Hemmings Motor News now, or Hemmings Muscle and all that stuff. Jeff Koch, also at Hemmings, and it was Gray Baskerville, who's now in Hot Rod Heaven or wherever, he passed. And it was Roe, who's down in Florida, retired. And that was us. That was the staff of Hot Rod Magazine. There was occasional room for freelancers, but for the most part, they said, you guys justify your pay. So every month for 77 issues, you basically come up with your share of the story load. And I did tech inspection and some readers' rides, but mostly I was in charge of like the hardcore tech stuff. Because I can take a picture, it's okay, but I use my camera, I have a tripod, I bracket, and I'm done. That's what I do. I don't bring lights or any of that shit, basically. So, I wasn't big on taking cover shots. I didn't care. I wanted to grab the crank going into the engine, the machine work on the fillets, that thing. So that's what I did mostly at Hot Rod. And when I was there, you have the opportunity to impose some of your will into the editorial. And I love Chevrolets, but I really love Mopars, and Pontiacs, and so that we were kind of brought in, me and Terry McGeehan and Jeff Koch, to kind of shake it up. There was a whole lot of, I don't know. Well, Jeff Smith's a great dude. He's a very strong guy, but he's all Chevy.
Very conservative, very Chevy.
He'd throw a Mopar in once in a while to keep those guys happy. But, whoa, that's not those guys. It's everyone, So I found it. I would do stories on, well, mostly I said, dude, we have downstairs, there is a photo archive that goes back to 1952. The stuff from 48 was kind of thrown away. So I went down there and I got into AFX and Superstock and altered wheelbase and match race cars. And I dragged pictures up. We do retrospectives, on Stonewoods and Cook and Malakote Brothers and
Right.
Rogers. And there's pictures down there that are outtakes from the ones in the magazine. I have to add here too, that in the years that I worked for Chrysler Power Magazine, 1991 through 94, before I get to Stage 5, well, during Stage 5 too, on the weekends in California, I had a side gig selling car magazines at Pomona, Long Beach, Jack Murphy, and at Bakersfield. I'd hit every weekend. I'm at some swap meet with a table full of old car magazines selling for $4 a piece or 3 for 10. And that kept me from having to go on welfare or whatever, because $100 Chrysler Power wasn't cutting it. So I'd make, between $200 and $800 every Sunday, selling old car magazines. And it never failed. I'd be there. A guy would come up, excuse me, son, do you happen to buy these things? And it might be Ernie Hashem from, Hashem's race, some old guy, he's a famous drag racer. And that was the thing about California at the swap meets. You never know who you're talking to. And it's
I can imagine.
And here too, for that matter. But out there, it's like, every other guy, just as like every other person in Hollywood, you throw a rock, it's an extra, it's a star or some crap. You know what I mean? It's some actor. Yeah. They settle there. And hot rodding, of course, a lot of its roots were there. Not all of them, a lot of East Coast. But anyway, so I'd sell magazines on the weekends, and I still have the magazine collection. So anyway, I'd be looking at like, the August 63 Hot Rod, the Max Wedge thing. And I'd go into the photo archives, find the outtakes. And we'd actually do outtakes of the Max Wedge story, things that weren't shown that were like, wow. So a lot of that. And also funny cars. I built a thing called the Wilshire Shaker, an altered wheelbase Chevy Nova. And that became like a project car in Hot Rod. Jeff Smith, who at that point was at Chevy High, saying, Steve, you're leading the readers wrong. They're going to kill themselves in those cars. And no, we're building street replicas that go 11s, And he goes, 11s? I'm like, yeah, 11. So, not 8s. I wouldn't go 8s in a car like that. But,
Steve, if people who want to see these cars, where can they go?
Well, online, just Google Wilshire Shaker. There's loads of pictures. Or I have a book. Seeing as how
your book. Yeah, you sent me those books.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if seriously, everyone watching this, and I'm not plugging it because I'm trying to sell this stuff. I'm telling you firsthand. He sent me a couple of books. That was one of them. He sent me a couple of books some years ago. Yeah. It's absolutely first rate. If you guys want to know how to build an altered wheelbase car, or even just the engineering of them in general, right? That book is fantastic. The pictures are great. Like that first class. See, here's the thing, Steve. There's a lot of automotive journalists out there, okay? But there's very few of them that are actually hands-on. I really do build this stuff. I really do know this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just like your background working for Stage 5 is like you are privy to a whole different universe and a whole different mindset than the typical automotive journalist would be.
Well, so Yeah.
That's what people who aren't familiar with your background should really know, and about like the products, what you put out there, the background, the education that you have, the background, your field of expertise is expansive, and you're the real deal. You know what I'm saying? You're one of the very few who can call himself an automotive journalist that you actually are the real deal.
Yeah, well, I will say, thank you for that. And I will say that, Steve Schneider's sense in hiring you, who, couldn't spell whatever, but they did the right move. And I don't know what a diphthong is, by the way, and I don't want to know. I know it when I see one. No, I'm kidding. At the beach. No, but like a diphthong, or, sentence structure, same thing. I was an English major, but it's just whatever. I don't know. But, we know how to write, of course. But the thing of it is, I found that, at Peterson and elsewhere, a lot of, there were not a lot, but there's a certain chunk of automotive journalists who are more spectators, I guess you might say, or something, reporters. They might be doing anything with the right. And sadly, I think they're hired because the company knows they're going to be easy to edit and that kind of thing. Whereas the greasy guys, you and I, you more than me, maybe, but the Project 1999. I mean, come on, but
1099 for 9, yeah.
Yeah. But it is true that there's, like with anything, there are engineers who are particularly good and some who are okay and all that kind of stuff. So, but I try to do 11/10 when I can. But here's the punchline on this thing. This book, it's Cartech Books, which they're cool. They're out there in Nebraska or whatever it is. These guys, there we go, Cartech Books. Anyway, but it was a tough sell. At first they said, well, we're going to ask you to self-publish and all this kind of stuff. They finally said, okay, we'll try it. Turned out to be fairly successful. Here's the thing. They ended it. Now when you buy that book, it's still available, but it's print on demand and it's black and white. So beware. You can buy it. Yeah. So I bought the last 200 color copies at like a buck a piece, which was cool. They're almost gone. I still have swap meets and stuff like that. The book's still around, but I'm more known for my 1001, these things here. Not that I'm trying to hawk these things. In fact, this one here, I got an email today that 1001 Mustang Facts is being discontinued. So get them while they're hot, folks. Whatever. But the thing what I like to do is here's 1001 Corvette Facts. And in these things, what I like to do is basically just tell the story of well, not tell you, but facts, factoids. Did you know that magnesium was considered for the differential cover on the this, that, because of cafe or that kind of thing. So there's 1001 facts like those things, and just the tidbits, the nuggets, the stuff. Oh, I didn't know that. I kind of specialize in that. It's fun, and I sat right here at this table for each of those books. It was about 9 months, almost like having a kid, if you will. Making those books, but it was wonderful. Just basically
people have been trying to get me to do books now for 40 years, right? I can't do it.
Yeah.
I've actually sat down and thought about it, and that's as far as I go. Like my brain just completely unplugs.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm just not wired for it. The fact that you can spit those things out like that is just amazing.
Well, I will say this: you would have some good stuff. Street racing do's and don'ts. I mean, there's a mind, but it is true that once you commit, you got to finish the damn thing. I remember being at like fact number 649 or filling oh my God, how many more? 300? No, yeah, you just keep going. They give you a year. I usually got them in 9 months, but it's you got to deliver. So I'm done. I did muscle car facts, Mustang facts, Corvette facts, and I think the only one left is Volkswagen Beetle facts. Believe it or not, that would be a fascinating book to write. But no, I'm good. I don't have time.
Well, now most of the people who are in this audience here know me from YouTube, and they know you from television, from Roadkill, and from. So why don't you tell people how you got there and what the story was all at?
Sure. Yeah. So I get to Hot Rod in 98, whatever it was, and I was there through 05. Well, part of that during the last 2 years or so, there's a thing called Hot Rod Magazine TV, which was produced in Tennessee. Chuck Hansen and Joe Elmore used to be on, I think, I guess the Speed Channel way back when.
They filmed it literally. I can spit and hit where they filmed that.
RTM Studios.
RTM is 20 miles that way.
Okay.
And where they filmed Shade Tree Mechanic.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was there like that. That was the first show that they actually got going. It was like literally right here. Like okay. I can see it from here.
It's a small world, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it turns out I guess the contract for Chuck Hansen, Joe Elmer was up or something like that. It says, guys, what we're going to do is do Hot Rod TV in-house and finally make it about the magazine and maybe make the show drive newsstand sales. Duh, you know what I mean? Because Hot Rod Magazine TV for a long time was about a whole different thing than the magazine, which is kind of wacky. It's like Mad TV. I love that show, by the way, but it had nothing to do with the magazine, the comic.
Right.
But anyway, whatever. But so anyway, they said, okay, guys, you're on TV now, and this is my theme in my life, by the way. There was no talk of additional pay. Okay, so I did like, I don't know, 80 shows, and what I would often do, it was a little bit of thinly veiled infomercial, but that was part of my duties. And some of the other guys, well, Jeff Koch, bless him, and all of a sudden he said, I'm not doing that. It's not my job description. Screw that. Plus, he hated being on camera, so fair enough. I liked it. Remember, I went to Hollywood to maybe act, right? So, and I took some acting classes, you know, Toby Maguire, Allison Hannigan, Brittany Murphy was in a class that I had, and she died, and, you know, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, you rush these people. But so anyway, but Hot Rod Magazine TV was the first thing. And so I did a little bit of scripted stuff, the new Hollywood Avenger fuel pump, you know, in the Watch the Train, the Tank, that kind of dog and pony stuff. And then they'd say, hey, we need something. Let's go to the junkyard, as I'd say. So we'd bring cameras to the junkyard, and we'd just go look at the truck section, find a 9-inch limited slip differential, or an 8 3/4 with a 355 gear set, you know, or like a Dodge van, the front axle could use this, or a 5-liter Mustang, and how the difference in an LTD intake manifold is from a 5.0 Mustang, that kind of stuff. Just do points. Like, people loved it. But the problem with that stuff was, at that point, the publishers couldn't figure out how to make that stuff pay. And we go do junkyard pieces. There'd be blowback from, you know, industry companies saying, hey, that's great, but this junkyard stuff doesn't help us sell, fill in the blank, you know? So that's when I knew, I mean, you could glue those two things together, like Gojo Hand Cleaner and maybe Craftsman Tools could sponsor the junkyard stuff, duh, but somehow that never happened. But with that said, that's how I sort of got on camera. And then that led to, I left Hot Rod in 2004, January 20th, 2004. And one of the problems was that I had two bosses. You know, Ro McGonigal was there for years, and David Freiberg, who's brilliant. He's part of the Roadkill thing. But David arrived.
He doesn't like me.
He doesn't like me. Yeah.
He doesn't like me.
It's funny. It's, you know, it's, I don't know. He'll work 25 hours a day, and everything he does, he pretty much does well. He brought Carcraft back from the dead, and he didn't like what we were doing at Hot Rod. I'm not sure if it was that he wasn't there. Don't know. But he was running Carcraft, brought that back to life. But he didn't like. Well, you know, I put a Chevette on the cover of Hot Rod magazine with bird shit on the window. Also, a Nova in primer on the cover of Hot Rod, because Rose said, "Fuck it, do it." You know, so we did things. And Freiberg was kind of like, you know, you guys are dragging Hot Rod's legacy through the mud. Because at that point, it was kind of like the flagship, the Queen Mary. We sort of made it with war paint, you know, and kind of made it in a fight machine again, kind of, you know, rather than a showboat, sort of. Not to take too much, but, you know, it was a team effort. But so anyway, this junkyard stuff was, you know, I thought was going over, and it was. So anyway, but Dave came in one day, Freiberger, to kind of help and straighten things up, but they didn't let Roe go. So it's like being on a U-boat with two commanders. So it was kind of weird for a couple of years, you know. They were both great, but tough to be, you know, allegiant to one or both or whatever it was. So anyway, in 2008, I said, okay, I got to go. And because right before that, I got an agent in California, and it was weird. The agent says to me, Steve, you're a good news, bad news client. The good news is you're highly specific, you're automotive. The bad news is you're highly specific, you're automotive. We didn't know how to do, you know, because there was some automotive program, but not much. So anyway, the agent, he helped me to save me from myself. Instead of saying, yeah, I'll give you $50 to be on your show, he'd get me $500 to do this. You know what I mean? That kind of crap. I'm just not, I don't have the gene for that crap. I do, but anyway, long story short, so Hot Rod Magazine TV led to Barrett Jackson. So in 2005, I leave Hot Rod, and then apparently Brock Yates was MIA or couldn't be at the Barrett Jackson, Florida show. So they hired me for a one-time thing. So I went from in January watching Barrett Jackson and punching the air when somebody says, well, it's quite a lump, talking about Hot 429. Is it a magnesium or aluminum? Which one is it? You know, Alan Academy, love you. But anyway, you know, he would sort of talk generally about cars. I said, hey, you can do better than that. Come on. So I did my thing in Florida and just kind of brought an automotive taste to talking about cars at Barrett Jackson. So that went well. So it's been 16 years that I've been doing the Barrett Jackson shows 4 times a year. My little trick is basically giving the car a voice for 4 minutes while it's on the block.
Right.
And Mike Joy, you know, he's the voice of NASCAR, and you know, it's an honor to work with him. And so we'll be doing that in Houston in the middle of September. The next auction comes.
You do such a fantastic job. I'm not really an auction guy, right? You know, it's like I'm not really interested in that level of car. It's kind of not my bag. When I do watch them, I watch them because of you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And the thing we get, the management says quite often, well, keep that technical stuff to a minimum. People tune in to watch the bidding, the furious bidding. I'm like, I hope, but probably not. But I mean, but it's nice. It's fun to watch the people fight it out and stuff like that. We have earbuds. We sometimes I'll be thinking, well, the Dana 60 was built between 1966 and 71, 4 speeds and blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, Steve, little back layoff. We hear layout, which means, in other words, they have two cameras on two people who are fighting for the for the Roadrunner, and they tell me layout, so I just shut up. He's quiet down. So if you ever hear me stop talking suddenly, it's usually because you hear, hey, layout. But at the same time, they appreciate the technical angle, and I'm just surprised that everybody doesn't do that. It's pretty easy. It's called a little bit of research, and I'll just say that
they're not real gearheads, though. See, that's the thing, and that's the difference between you, me, and the rest of the people who are in the quote industry. Yeah. We're real, actual gearheads. Yeah. We see the cars from the inside out. Yeah. They see it from the shine in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm sure they.
Yeah. No, I want to get to our people here.
Sure.
Because I'm sure they've got a lot of questions I want to ask you and whatnot. But let's talk about Junkyard Gold, because that was the best show ever. I binged watched that the whole series at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Because actually, when did I have it? It doesn't make any difference. What happened with that show?
Well, here's this bag right here. This here, Velocity Channel TV show ideas. That right there. That is the genesis of Junkyard Gold, right? So for about 10 years in Carcraft magazine, they gave me a page at the back every month for the Junkyard Crawl. And I just take pictures of a 1955 Mercury with a Dana 53 rear axle. I described her. It wasn't a 44, it wasn't a 45, it wasn't a 60, it was a 53. And yeah, they made them. And in 1966 and 7, when you bought a 440 C body with a 4-speed,
and that had that Dana 50, right?
53. So I'm like, why didn't this is cool, So that was 10 years in Carcraft, and thank you, Carcraft. Doug Glad and then John McGann for having the sense, and Johnny Hunkins, all these editors who said, yeah, bring it on. They didn't pay me $500 a show or an episode, an article. So anyway, but I said this needs to be a TV show. So what I spent $5,000 my own money, went up to a yard in New York State. This guy near Lebanon Valley had a bunch of Hemis and stuff. Greg, I think, was his name, and he had a bunch of really good Mopars in the woods. Now they were handpicked. It was a collection that the guy happened to keep outside. Look at the junkyard. And it kind of was. So I brought the camera, did about 2 days there, and for $5,000 created a demo. Sent that to Velocity Channel, Speed Channel, and the guys at Velocity Channel, I couldn't believe it. They said it's too teachy. What else you got? And I just couldn't believe it, So the stuff that they pay me to do at Barrett-Jackson, I was doing in the junkyard, and it should be a smash hit. Well, sometimes the folks making decisions at TV channels are sports people and or not car people, which we know is nothing new. Welcome to Hollywood, right? So anyway, Hollywood being, that thing where decision makers are not always the best people are making that decision. God bless them all and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, well, Freiberger, I said, hey, Dave, and he goes, that's okay. Let's try it on Motor Trend On Demand. So they did, and it did very well. So within, shortly it became Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. Hey, I'll be under David's umbrella any day. No problem with that. So we did 31 episodes. It was all good. And then we're at Stevens Performance in Andersonville, Alabama, the Mopar place. And we're on the final 2 shows of the 3rd season. And the cameraman saying, man, this thing in China is getting pretty serious, And right. 1,400 people died. Next thing by the end of, wow, this is like a big deal. So we wrap up our season. Next thing you know, COVID strikes, right? So we all stay home. And then I didn't hear anything from Motor Trend, thinking, well, we're going to start with the 4th season soon. That was the word. The ratings were good. People were loving it and stuff. And I wait until October. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And nobody called you? No. Well, they're not doing it anymore. So there was no exit interview. I was pissed. Motor Trend. I was like, what the hell? What's up? But I'm in Massachusetts. They're in California. So it's not like I go in their office every day. But I'm kind of like the guy at the Nome weather station in Alaska who doesn't hear anything. But he's also the guy at the middle of the show, But anyway, the show was well received, but it was not renewed. And that's what
when you told me they canceled that, man, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. That was the best show they had on. I'm not slighting any of their other shows. They have some good stuff. But that was head and shoulders all by itself. That was like Smithsonian level Gearhead. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're into cars, you cannot help but love that. The junkyard is everybody's like serenity place. You know what I mean? And you go there and just these little details, just those little trivia things, right? If you're a true gearhead, that's everything. You know what I mean? The differences between a 61 and a 62 Pontiac dashboard, you know, the way the radio bezel sits. Yeah, none of it is revolutionary. None of it is like exciting. There's no sex or explosions, but it's gearhead porn.
Yeah. Sometimes it's little things. It's a little thing sometimes. You know what I mean? And the little things can be huge things, obviously. You know, a J or a C and a VIN code. You know.
Right. But see, that's what made it the perfect kickback and binge watch.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You were the right guy for that. The trouble is, the very folks who said it was too teachy at Velocity Channel became the decision makers when Velocity / Discovery merged with Motor Trend. So here we go again with that crap. So it wasn't a vendetta, nothing like that. But I sometimes wonder if it was, and I don't know. My breath smell, I don't know. But anyway, so that's over with for now. And I sometimes think, well, if it's going to get back on, and I have to. There's a little asterisk in a second here that I have to tell. But if it's going to get, I think I have to do it myself, which is to say, oh, here we go with that. But you know what? It might not be a big deal. So we'll talk more about that. But in the meantime, I have to say, about 5 months ago, I got a phone call from Motor Trend saying, "Hey, Steve, we want to do a show about model cars." And I says, wait a minute. The first thing I would love to pitch, but the last thing I would pitch is a show about model cars. And you guys want to do this? Yeah. So to their wonderful credit, by the same folks who canceled Junkyard Gold, I said, let's do Steve Magnante's supermodels, not my, I was going to call it 25 to 1, it's the 25th scale, I don't know, whatever. But so we did 4 episodes of Steve Magnante's supermodels. It's called Supermodels. And they did very well, but they're only on Motor Trend on demand. Although I hear they're now starting to show them on the Motor Trend cable channel at 3 a.m., that kind of thing. So, but there's only 4 of them. There's not 30 or anything like that. So you know, Motor Trend, while, you know, I was frustrated with their lack of vision on ending Junkyard Gold, they said, yeah, to a model car show, and it turned out really good. They sent 4 guys, they did it at my house right here. They sent these guys from California. We were for 6 days. We did 9-hour days, 6 in a row. It was a grinder, but we did it. And I built 4 model cars. One of them is the Jimmy Addison Silver Bullet.
Nice.
And I built it on camera, you know, right down to the exhaust with the 4 mufflers and all of that stuff. I mean, it's not a show-winning model, but I kind of, you know, had to cover a lot of ground.
I found that car in a garage in Detroit, right outside of Detroit, in 1986.
Chris Tatey. Chris Tatey.
What's that?
There's a name, Chris Tatey, ring
Chris, yeah.
Right on. It's a small world. Yeah.
He also had a complete in the box, in the package. When they built the AFX, when they built the altered wheelbase cars, Chrysler had, so they built the 11 Amblewagon cars, and then they put a kit together. So if you were an independent racer, you could get all of the front end sheet metal, you know, the sheet metal. You get the front end parts with the altered, you know, the fenders and all of that, the plugs for the rear quarter panels, and a life-size blueprint of the car that you would pin up to the wall. So this kid, the same kid that had the Addison's car, had this whole kit from Chrysler, brand new, to build an altered wheelbase car.
Wow. I have to say, his name's Chris Tatey with a K, Chris Tatey. Good dude. He didn't like to be exposed in public. Sorry, Chris, but he might be watching. He probably is. But he was a kid who was a hardcore Mopar guy.
Oh, yeah, he was.
Oh, yeah. And his father bought him the Silver Bullet as a gift. And apparently the mechanic took it for, I blew the engine up, so it sat for a long time. But he traded that to a guy named Harold Sullivan, who traded him a 446-pack Petty Blue 4-speed Roadrunner white gut. Got him that car, found it downside for the Silver Bullet. And then Harold Sullivan rebuilt the car, or, you know, brought it back to life. And how do I know that? Because Cliff Grover assigned me that story in Mopar Action, probably 1992 or 3 or something like that. But it's funny. And funny thing is, too, by the way, during almost all of my magazine work, I would record the conversations with people like Ronnie Socks, Bill Jenkins, Don Nicholson. I have those tapes. And another thing, too, by the way, Tony, when I got hired by Roy McGonigal to go to Hot Rod, I was halfway into a Tommy Ivo interview, and I sent you the tapes. I was talking to Tommy. You remember those? Do you still have them?
I did. Oh, no, God, that's just long on. But I did a whole, like, a 4-page thing with Ivo. Yeah. That's right. I forgot. You had sent me a lot of that stuff.
I couldn't finish. I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? And I'm thinking, because Ivo, we spent like, I don't know, 4 hours on the phone, and I was blown away that Ivo explained, he confessed to me that a lot of the 426 Hemis in his dragsters came from Midnight Auto Supply, and he didn't yeah, I'm like, wow.
I had a neighbor. His name was Jim, my next door neighbor, and he was a auto crime, New York City auto crime.
Okay.
So he busted up a chop shop. He comes home in the morning. He worked the night shift, and it was a morning, and I was outside doing whatever I was doing, building a go-kart, whatever it was. And he comes over and he hands me a piece of paper. He says, "I got you some autographs last night. You know I was here for drag racing."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I busted these guys over in Queens." So it was Broadway Freddy, it was Jungle Jim Liebman, and who was the other guy? I forget who the other guy was. It'll come to me in a minute. It does make a difference. He so he busted this chop shop and he got them all to sign an autograph for me.
So they were at the chop shop or part of it?
They were getting parts for the race cars.
That's wild. So they happen to be there. The raid comes on, and wow,
Right.
So General Jim's probably getting L88s or whatever, short blocks for his funny before he went Chrysler and woke up. I shouldn't say that. Trying to run a rat.
That was probably right around 1972. I guess it was about 10, 11 years old.
You still have it?
Oh no! I'm terrible with things, man. I don't have anything from my past. I have no magazines. I have no pictures. There's a couple of a random picture here or there, but I'm one of those people that I try not to. I don't want to be surrounded by things from the past because I'm always looking at. I want to keep my eyes focused on the future.
That's an interesting.
There's plenty of time to reminisce about the shit when I'm on my deathbed, but right now I just want to keep moving forward.
I get it. I'm not into astrology or any of that crap at all. I shouldn't say crap. I'm a Cancer, but theoretically cancers collect everything. And I have some of the first model cars I ever built, and I still have the boxes. I brought them here just to sort of put out.
That's great.
This is the first model car I ever had in my life, right here, 1970 Monte Carlo. My mom. This isn't it because I lost that over the years, but it's after the heartbreak of losing my original Monte Carlo. This little puppy right here. I built another one, but I do collect things, and somebody's going to have a hell of a dumpster to fill up on the day that I croak or whatever happens. But I do keep and collect. If you ever want back issues of your stuff, I'll send them to you. I have a fair number. If you want them, just let me know. I'll send them to you.
I'm trying to forget I ever did that. It's just it's YouTube. Now it's all about YouTube.
Yeah.
And when we move on to the next thing, YouTube, what was that?
Delete. All right. Yeah.
So guys, we got how many people we got? We got a lot of people on here. It was 500 and some odd.
Wow. Okay. Hi.
First off, now, Steve, you've got a YouTube channel.
Well, I do, and here it's just getting up to speed. And let me one thing here. It's been I guess Well, it started when. Remember Spanky Assiter and Amy from Barrett Jackson? If not, don't worry about it. He was the lead auctioneer, and Amy was his wife on the commercials going, "So," the lady with the long hair. That was Amy. Well, they were a couple, and they were, for a long time, the lead auctioneer for Barrett. Well, they left, whatever, and Spanky is now in Texas, where he lives, and has forever. He runs an auction company. Well, he was assigned to sell a 250-car Mopar estate. October 13th, he hired me to go out there and shoot 150 videos, walk-around videos, about these cars, ranging from 1938 Dodge to a 59 CHP Coronet Interceptor, still black and white, stuff like that. So 150 cars. So anyway, we launched my YouTube channel with those 150 videos. So if you go to Steve Magnante YouTube channel, it'll largely consist of 150 walk-around videos from the Great Texas Mopar Ford, which is happening on October 13th. So that is, at this point, my YouTube channel. And yes, I will begin to create content, probably junkyard stuff, maybe model car stuff. Not sure quite yet. It's just me at this point in time, and I have sort of a part-time buddy who has a job and a life, and I just got to find a team. But anyway, I do have a YouTube channel. Yes, go to the Steve Magnante YouTube and see that.
That's the difference. We were talking about this before. We came on here. That's the difference between YouTube and the world that you're accustomed to, right?
Yeah.
Because some of the most successful channels on YouTube, automotive channels, are a guy and a tripod, or just a phone and a selfie stick, or I have a Kathy. One person just following around, and you don't need that. Nobody cares about. I mean, people nitpick a little bit about sound and light, but it doesn't really count. It doesn't make any difference. People want the information.
Yeah.
They want the adventure or the information or the whatever it happens to be. They want the meat of it. They really don't like for instance, when you guys were shooting Junkyard Gold.
Yeah.
How many people did you actually have to take into the junkyard with you? What was that entourage like?
I'll tell you a little story. When I did that $5,000 self-funded thing, I hired a camera guy, a sound person, and an assistant, and my girlfriend at the time came along. I gave him $5,000, like 1,000 here, 1,000 there, whatever it was. Well, every episode of Junkyard Gold cost $38,000. Every one of them. Yeah. And here's the thing, right? I'm thinking to myself, I'm not getting a piece. I'm getting a very small piece of that, which, whatever. I'm fucking writing a damn thing and all that. But anyway, so I'm like, what? The art of waste. You think that's bad? Go watch a movie getting made sometime. You know what I mean? That's like, what the hell? But anyway, but everything has to be just right. Well, I get it. I say if you can see it and hear it, that's 95% of it. And well, of course, it's got to be something you want to see and hear. But they brought lights and stuff, which is cool. And I will say too, there were, it gave the show a look. There was a drone, a camera. I would stand there, welcome back, and the camera would fly away. And and you'd see this master shot of the whole yard. It was quite nice, but that kind of stuff is not why people tune in. If you just had that and not content, you would have nothing. So I hate to say, so it was like 38 grand a show. I couldn't believe it when I heard that. So anyway, with that said, there were 2 cameramen, a drone operator, an assistant, a showrunner, and a sound guy. So 6 people and me. And, we all stay at nice hotels. There were sometimes, I'm not negative. And apparently Junkyard Gold is one of the cheapest shows they made, so, but it's Motor Trend Studios. It's a big thing. And it's Hollywood, and it thinks like Hollywood. And the result is, generally 101%. But again, you don't always need that, especially when you're, struggling, just trying to get something done. So, it's,
The thing is, though, you look at budget produced, there's a lot of budget produced, like no budget. There's YouTube channels, without naming any of them, it doesn't make a difference, that get more views than the Motor Trend product.
Absolutely. I think glotz and glitz is the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? Look at anything and the glossier and stuff. That's not really the core. It's got to have a good core, and a lot of stuff does. A lot of it doesn't. And I think, as a result, a lot of these things are just wasted effort. So less can be a lot more. I get that,
So given the state of things, right? How long before is that system collapses under its own weight, given the competition it has from YouTube?
Yeah, I would say the clock's ticking. I will say that, when television came along, radio probably freaked out, or vice versa. But they seem to get along together. You know what I mean? But
there's a symbiotic relationship. They do 2 different things.
Yeah. I know that Motor Trend, they paid Kevin Hart, I don't know how much, but he's now got a show, and that's fine. I love the guy. He's funny. But the money for smaller shows like mine obviously went away, I guess. Otherwise, I'd still be doing that,
Well, I'm not going to take anything away from Kevin Hart, but I literally have no interest in clicking on, like, I'll turn on the TV right before I go to sleep and just see real quick. I have no interest in clicking on, not that he's not a funny guy or talented guy or anything like that, but I see like this, the basic format of the show is just, I'm a car guy, and it's not for me.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, there's all kinds of programming on, and there's all kinds of reasons why it gets on, and I don't know. It's just one of those things where I in a way, I kind of feel bad for network and traditional television. It's like, when they kiss, one foot has to be on the floor of the bedroom. Nobody can, you know what I mean? The old standards, no swearing, no cussing, that whole thing. And so they have their hands tied behind their back. So many of them, and so many directors and producers I've worked with. I actually had a guy tell me one time, button up your top button. I don't want to see the hair. I'm like, what the frick? I couldn't believe that, but they were more concerned with that than what I was going to say, so it was just kind of like weird, so whatever, it is what it is. But I'm in the middle of transitioning from that traditional world, middle of the road cable automotive television, which it's not a very high mark to set. Obviously, the earliest days of Diamond P Productions, remember NHRA Today, square stuff, Jungle Jim on acid, you're not going to see him, John Force saying damn it would be like, whoa, that stuff, that standard is still exotic in that realm. I hate to say it. They're getting their asses handed to them, obviously, by YouTube, as they have been for a long time.
It's over there. This is the new frontier, and welcome to it, man. I think, honestly, I could see you in the million sub range. I see you in Doug DeMauro territory.
Who's that?
So what I do is
Doug DeMauro.
Doug, you don't know who Doug DeMauro is?
Doug DeMauro?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, see, like, what I do is a tight kind of niche. I keep things within the scope of like what I've got my hands on here, projects that I can build and things that are in my. You're much broader. I could see you in the million sub range in a very short period of time if you really, what I mean. If you get dedicated to turning out product. Yeah. I see it happening for you more so than A lot of more, definitely more so than me. I know you've got bigger potential than I do, but a lot of I could see you as one of the bigger YouTube entities within 2 or 3 years. I think it'll be a slam dunk for you. But hang on a second, Kat. We've got, geez, we got 600. We got 600 people on here right now. So you should actually be picking up 600 subs with tonight. Guys, whoever, if you're watching this, go over to Steve's channel, right? Like it, subscribe, do all of the stuff, ring the bell, right? What else do they do? They ring the bell?
They ring the bell.
Ring the bell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that, right? So
like, share.
Like and share. I've got Ultra Kathy here off to the side.
Off to the side just in case of technical difficulties.
Okay. Oh, Teresa 47 Fargo just subscribed. Excellent. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, Kathy,
yes.
Filter through and see if there's any questions here for Steve. Guys, you got
the mouse right there.
I got the mouse.
Yeah, you can hit it.
Okay. So, guys, any questions? Anything you want to, you want to talk to Steve about? Jump in here, and if you see one.
Thank you, Fubar. Fubar just put up the link.
Fubar, yeah, that's the other thing too, man. You need mods. I got the best mods on the planet, right? They keep everything here because you'll get a lot of trolls. You'll get a lot of like disruptions and stuff like that. And we've got the best team of mods that ever existed, and I'm sure they'll come and help support you.
Here's the old. What's a mod? M-O-D.
Oh, a moderator.
A moderator. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So they keep everything in check here. So like when like a troll pops in, an obvious troll, right? Boom, they slam them. They'll put up links like Fubar is always putting up links. You put up a link to your channel and all that, so anybody who's on here can click on it and subscribe. Yeah, we just got the greatest mods.
Nice.
So like I said, guys, anybody who has anything to say to Steve, good, bad, or otherwise, jump in there
and one thing I will say is if folks do go to my YouTube channel, you'll see 150 4-minute walk around videos on really cool cars in the Texas dirt that'll be sold on October 13th. So if you like cop cars and weird stuff, anyway, check it out. So there is content there. It's just specific to the auction, but there'll be more. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, I see that. Go ahead.
All right, Kurt Zimmerman. He's one of our regulars.
Yeah.
Steve, any info on the old Pontiac Hemi engines Mickey Thompson developed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we all know, of course, that one of the first cars to run those things, and this is not planned, but this is the Brutus GTO. It's a model that I built recently. And the first Brutus had a thing that says Hemi Pontiac, Larry Hawkins Pontiac. And indeed, what Mickey Thompson did was he made aluminum Hemi heads that were very much like a Chrysler Hemi head, but they had some specific weird things. They bolted the Pontiac blocks, also did them for Ford FE engines.
Right.
If you snoop around on the web, you'll find guys who order and collect that stuff. The thing, it wasn't a big seller because I'm sure, like the Ardun head for what, $3,000, whatever it was, I'm sure most people said, look, I'll just use a Chrysler and not worry about the 80 pounds of aluminum, but oh yeah, those are rare and crazy things. Yeah, the Mickey Thompson, a hero. And I lived in El Monte, California, where Mickey Thompson apparently cut his teeth as a street racer. I used to try and listen for the ghost of him blasting down the streets there, anyway, Myrtle Avenue, that kind of stuff, and never heard it. But yeah, Mickey, what a legend. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're great things and obsolete, but also very, very cool.
All right, we got one here. Tony, please ask Steve if he has a 72 Twister Duster model kit. It is very important.
I do. The AMT released that probably around 1999. Get the one molded in purple plastic, gloss purple. You don't have to paint it. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Great model, 340. I believe it's a 4-speed. And the funny thing is, a lot of folks say that the 60s were the golden age of model cars, but in these last 30 years since the mid 80s, a lot of really top-notch models have come along with detail on leaf springs, axles, no more metal axles to hold the wheels on, that kind of junk. So yeah, it's a great model. The AMT 72 Twister. I do have one, sure. Great plastic.
It has the 340?
It's a 340 model. Yeah, it replicates a 340. You get white or black stripes.
But then you see, it shouldn't, because the Twister was only a slant 6 or a 318.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
That was the whole point of the Twister. Yeah, it was all the dress up stuff. Right. With 340 car, but with either a slant 6 or a 318.
You're right. It was sort of, yeah. So sometimes it's the way it's typed, but the Duster 340 model was, but yeah, there it is with the little Duster around.
And Dodge had the Sizzler, which was the Dodge equivalent of the Twister.
often shown in a ski slope or something, right? The ads, I think they show it
Yeah,
outside.
yeah.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
All right,
And a
let's
nice
see.
hood graphic on that too, by the way. That cool strobe black stripe on the sizzler. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Wait, where was this?
I'm not sure whether the Twister's that important. It's a great model, but anyway.
Talk about the cab Chevette. I think it got Steve nearly fired. I'm not familiar with this one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the Bad Seed Chevette. Give me 2 seconds. All right. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if you can see this, but this,
Oh, wow.
there it is right there. Okay, there it is, fast and cheap. That hunk was from the Hot Rod Magazine TV episode that we did about the Chevette. And what it came down to was April, I think, of 2000. April 2000, the April issue of most magazines, you kind of get to be funny and do goofy stuff. Well, we said Ro McGonigal too, the ultimate prankster, and hats off to him forever. But I said, why don't we get the smallest car and the biggest engine out of the junkyard, put them together and see how quick we can go. Kind of similar to the idea of, caddy hacks and imperial engines and cutting cars down. And even Project 1999, really the Roadrunner. But what I did is I got a Chevette, put a Caddy 500 on the front seat, welded it all together, real crude-like, and went 1190s, I think it was, at Palmdale. It was actually a 12.3, corrected. It's 11.9. It reads better.
Right.
But it was a little animal. But that car was mine, and that was done under Ro McGonigal's administration. And when David Freiberger arrived on a Wednesday, for whatever reasons, at that point I was doing a fair amount of street racing on the weekends in the city of industry on a place called Capitol Avenue. It was called the Traction Capital, but it was basically by a week of a very busy truck place and stuff. On the weekends, it was dead. It was 4 lanes wide. It was a half a mile long. There was nobody around. It was a cul-de-sac with an inn. So I brought the Chevette down there one night. Well, Mike Bumbeck, who you might know, I don't know, he's sort of in the circle of writers and stuff. He visits Hot Rod one day. He says, "Hey, Steve, so you're running the Chevette this weekend at Capitol?" "Yeah, I'm going to run a thing and be cool." And then David comes in the office, and I've written about this, so Dave knows the story. And Dave goes, "You're doing what?" I said, "I'm going to street race the Chevette." "No, you're not." So we had this whole showdown. I raced it anyway. I didn't tell him, but I broke it that night. So maybe I did. The spirit got me. But yeah, I used to drag race, but it was a Chevette with a Cadillac, the carburetor under the windshield. It was like an old gas funny car. You basically follow that recipe. No altered wheelbase, but it had Ford Pinto 8-inch rear axle, Ford F-150 leaf springs cut in half as traction arms, and then the coil springs welded to cups on the axle. And the damn thing would yank the front tires about 3 inches and just hook. And we used Honda drag slicks, little 13-inch things, fat little things on the back. So that was
Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. That was one of the things. It had bird shit on the cover of Hot Rod. There it was. And, that was one of the things that some folks said were dragging Hot Rod through the mud. I kept the emails. And others said, "Man, thank God the Hot Rod's back. You choose. But that was the Chevette. It's still alive. It's in California right now in the guy's collection.
But how did it almost get you fired?
Well, Dave, my editor, said, "Hey, no, that's a magazine car, and you're not street racing that, because if you kill somebody, it's our problem." He had a very good point.
Yeah.
At the same time, it was, he used to street race too, whatever. But he said he grew up, and I get that. But he did say too, he had a point if somebody got killed. But the thing was, it was in my name, and Roe. He was a little more crazy, and that's a fun thing. And he said, "I don't care what you do." So he was like for it. So it was kind of weird having two parents.
Well, there's such a thing as I know nothing, I see nothing.
Yeah. There's that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we still did it. Nothing happened except the engine puked. So that was it. And one thing too with Cadillac 500s, they have a large combustion chamber and like 8.1 compression, unless you get a 1970 cylinder head. You get a 12-to-1 if you throw that on top of an earlier engine. But they tend to break pistons pretty quickly if you do that kind of stuff to them. And sure enough, that happened to mine. So anyway, but junkyard stuff, just swapping junk around. It was wonderful. I was honored to be able to do that. And it fell into my lap. I started reading about this Maximum Torque Specialties, MTS. He had this little brochure, and I started reading about, man, this Caddy 500 has a lot of potential. Although the valve train stinks. It's got these tiny little T-bars and minuscule springs. Now Beehive springs would be the answer. I'm sure they do it. But back then, there was no way to get over like 5,000 RPM out of one of those things. You go into valve flow, little tiny springs. But you don't need it. If you make, 500 foot-pounds at 3,000, you're okay by 6. You don't go to 6. But that was the Cadillac powered Chevette. Yeah.
What happened to that car? Where is it today?
Well, when I moved from California to Massachusetts, I hired an Intercity Lines truck and I filled it with 6 cars. There was no room for the Chevette. So I had a Hemi Dart, a stage 5 Hemi conversion car. The 727 was kind of fried. So I had a buddy of mine rebuild the tranny, and I gave him the Chevette in exchange, with the word that he wouldn't part it out or wreck it or do anything, or paint it pink. So he sold it to a guy who then has it in a collection. It's a former Hot Rod project car or cover car. And in fact, at the Father's Day show at Pomona, there was a former cover car gathering, and their car was there. The Chevette was there. And it was cool. Yeah. And Farber really smiled at it, which is good. So David's a good dude, but we had a few moments. He was being corporate, and he had to be, so he almost got fired over that. Yeah. We had a whole series of showdowns about that car, but we got over it. He was right. There you go.
We got Michael Morrow here. Steve, it's Mike and Amanda. We love you.
Yeah.
Remember when we raced a Rampage up against that pre-production Shaker Challenger at Dodge Lightning in 2015? Blah, blah.
Yeah. Mike Morrow, who lives pretty close by over in, I think, Sturbridge, just helped his girlfriend and wife Amanda, great friends. And I had Tim Kaniskis at Dodge loaned me, they loaned me a Shaker Challenger about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I had my Rampage altered wheelbase 512-inch max wedge Dart. We wanted to see how quick that Rampage was. So I drove the Rampage. I put Mike in the Shaker Challenger, and the Shaker put a car length on my altered wheelbase max wedge Dart, which told us all these new cars haul ass. And it was probably a 13.2 pounds. Something like that. So yeah, so Mike Morrow was driving. I do have a video of that I have it on my desktop. I don't know how to add it in here, but if you want, somehow I can get that to you. The statute of limitations probably passed, so nobody's going to go to jail over it. But anyway, that's Mike and Amanda, good folks. Yep, Mike Morrow.
Rocky Myers. Does Steve have any insight into the rampant cam lifter failures?
Yeah, well, I've heard a few things. I was at Hot Rod. I left Hot Rod in 2004, January 20th, there it was. And we were starting to see that stuff then. And there were 2 schools of thought. One was the absence of molybdenum and, heavy metals in oil for emissions and all that. And suddenly the metals were no longer protected, and the cam break-in was the worst thing, and you're killing your lobes and that. There was also a sense that there was a run of bad lifters that was unaccounted for, but there were millions of them, and they were soft. And maybe that was the root cause, but because of class action lawsuits and problems thereof, nobody wanted to really put a light on that. One of those 2 things is probably what happened. But the good news, the upshot, is that it brought into the world roller cams and roller lifters to get away from that problem. And now that we can have crazy valve lift and duration and all that stuff, who needs a flat tappet? So it was a good thing in the end.
The latest thing now is bad hydraulic rollers.
Okay.
Which I actually have a set in my engine over here. Farberger had one in his disgusting go bad. Actually, I believe it jumped out of the bore, exposed the oil galley, and killed the motor. So yeah, just dead lifter stuff everywhere.
I think it's Delphi. Is Delphi the maker of those roller lifters? I think, and they're the one. Sometimes Delphi doesn't want to hear the lawyers come running. Not that I said that. I hate anyway.
Don Sylvia is like jumping out of his skin over here. It's really important that I talk to him about that twister duster. Is there any way he can get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Hemi Magneto at AOL.com. Funny car ignition. Hemi Magneto at AOL.com. And just put in your line, just say duster twister question. That way I'll know what it is, Okay. But yeah, really important. All right. It's a great model. Most of them, they're mostly molded in gray plastic, but some were done in purple plastic. That may be the thing, and you can't tell from the box. Although there was a sticker on the cellophane, but if that's gone, you don't see it. Anyway.
Okay, what was Fairmont?
Oh, Mike Morrow again. Yeah. Well, I've built.
Yeah, tell people about your Fairmont.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've built 3 altered wheelbase cars for the streets, and the first one was when I was at Hot Rod Magazine, the Wilshire Shaker Nova, which again is this car here. Let's see, there we go, that car, which was a Hot Rod Magazine project car. And that led to the Rampage, which was a 63 Dodge Dart, similar concept. And that was done after I left Hot Rod, but it was also a funny car for the streets. And here is the Rampage. Oh, crud. Okay, hang on. I'm dyslexic. There we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a neat car. And there it is. I wanted to put a Hemi in. I got the 64 K heads, and the Kid Goat, Corruptor's Pup. Remember those old funnies from like '64 when people were putting Hemis in A bodies? That was along with the altered wheelbase program. The Hemi A body was sort of one of their Plan B nuclear weapons, as were mid-engined A bodies like the Cotton Picker and the Little Red Wagon. You know, these were things that
right. A lot of people don't know that was a factory car. That was actually intended for a factory experimental.
That's correct. That's correct. With it wasn't Maverick driving it. It was Jay Howell who initially was driving it.
Right. Tom McEwen actually had a rear-engine Barracuda that was a backdoor factory sponsored thing. There was crazy stuff. I want to see. That's something that you and I want to get together with you and my friend Dallas, because Dallas, who owns the AHRA, he's doing a channel called the American Hot Rod Association Drag Racing History Channel, and actually his studio is right next door to this one that I'm in right now. And that's something I want to get together with you, and I want to talk about that 1964, 1965, 66, the Match Bash era, because I know that your heart is there. You're all about those cars. And just to go back and plug your book again, right? For anybody who's interested, he outlines the build on that Dart and on the Fairmont
Here's the Fairmont
in detail, like literally every nut and bolt, every cut, it's just amazing. So if you guys are interested in the concept or the idea or the history of vaulted wheelbase cars, that book you must have that book, period.
I will say too that I've done a couple of DVDs, and this is a 90-minute long thing. This is the book as a video. I sent you one of these, Tony, I think. If not, I'll send you another one. And we did a second one, this one here, which it kind of shows racing these things and stuff. But these are all street cars, you know. And the thing of it is, too, I mean, to me, one of the Bright Brothers, the B-17, the Valoriki or whatever it is, the Stealth Fighter, step. Sometimes things went too quickly. And to me, the altered wheelbase door slammer era passed too quickly. Mercury kind of screwed things up in '66 with the flip top comments. They're cool, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, but that led to the weird soap things in the early '70s. Funny cars lost me in '74 when they become like the Moby Dick, just weird stuff. But when they still had doors, I think they were awesome. You know?
I think funny cars stayed visually interesting, viable right up until about 1981 or 1982. Because if you look at look at the Plymouth Arrows from that era, the Mustang 2s, think of like the 77, 78 Blue Max.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, these were beautiful, beautiful cars. To this day, Johnny Loper's little Haas, who was a black, you know the car I'm talking about? The black Arrow with the gold lettering.
Yeah.
The most beautiful car.
To me, the most graceful flip tops are like 1971 2 Mustang fastbacks, just beautiful, just so graceful. They look perfect with the front end push forward. And to me, the altered wheelbase thing, it kind of makes the chassis look like it's jumping out from under the car. So I have a Ford Fairmont. Yes, it's a 1981 Fairmont. And the thing of it is, I wanted to do a Chevy, a Mopar, and then a Ford, you know. So I thought the only Ford I really would want to do would be a 65 Mustang fastback or a Fairlane with a Camry, a 427. I thought I can't begin to afford the 10 grand core for the Mustang, although now you can buy a Mustang reproduction shell. But back when I was doing this, I says, well, I'm going to go poor. I did a Valiant with a Camry, a 4.6 Camry. I says, well, these are the grandchildren of a Falcon with a 427 Camry. And so I built it as a what-if modern thing. In fact, I drove it yesterday on the Mass Bike, had a left rear tire belt separate. So if you on the Mass Bike yesterday between Sturbridge and, Springfield and Sturbridge, and you saw a gray Fairmont going 30 in the breakdown lane, that was me nursing a broken cord all the way home. It didn't pop. I made it. So anyway, but somebody driving everywhere. It's got a 5-speed. It gets like 23 miles to the gallon. It'll run a low 13. It's, it's fun. But it's a poor man's what-if funny car. Anyway.
So Mopar Man 1970 is asking about the 62 Valiant, white 62 Valiant.
Yeah, well, in California, the beauty about that place, it's maybe not so much now, but on Sundays, a thing called The Recycler would come on. It's a newspaper, and in the back, classic cars for sale. If you had $1,000 in your pocket, and Freiberger makes hay of this, he did for years at Carcraft. If you had $1,000, you could head your pick of a dozen really interesting cars. So I would buy 62 Valiants Four doors almost always. Couldn't find a two door. Forget that. You'd buy a two door Valiant for $1,000, slant six, push button torque flight 7.25, and it would be no rust, some dents, but you drive it. So I had one of those. I drove cross country like 5 times. So a lot of folks remember me from that. I also had a two door at one point that I put all aluminum slant six, including the head and a hyper pack, and that was a car that was kind of in a few magazines. It was in Hemming's Classic Car of all places. We did a feature on it there, but it wasn't in Hot Rod or Car Craft because I was gone by that point. But yeah, two door Valiant with slant six. Kind of cool.
Michael Morrow brings up something that is so okay. So before you even address that, right? I want to bring the general population up to speed. There was a phenomenon. It's still, I believe, it still happens to some extent, but there was a phenomenon in New York. This is in New York City and Long Island, okay, where they had firefighter competitions every year, okay, and they used to build cars specifically for this competition.
Can I leave for about 40 seconds and get something?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Take it away. Go right back.
All right. So they would build these. The competition was this: you had to build a fire truck, and the fire truck was basically a dragster with slicks all the way around, because you'd have to have your guys, you had your driver, and then you had your crew on the back. And the thing had to accelerate from 0 to whatever, in whatever distance was, come to a complete stop. Then they had to pull the ladder off and pull the hose off and all this other stuff. So they built these absolutely insane contraptions. And one of them was an A990, a 65 Chrysler A990. And for those people who don't know, that's the race Hemi, the 65 A990 with the aluminum heads and magnesium water pump and magnesium oil pump and magnesium crosser and all of that. So when he comes back, there he is. Okay. I just want to give people the basic idea of what this firefighter competition was about.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Of course, while I'm trying to find it, I can't find the issue. But in some of these magazines here, they did nice coverage. And the funny thing is, it was an East Coast thing, as far as I could tell. But indeed, I think it was Far Rockaway, New York, or something like that, where these guys were home. But yeah, it had like just some weird stuff. But anyway, yeah, they would do that, max wedges, but mostly it was Marty Shore's East Coast high performance cars and that kind of stuff that would give these things attention. And that was one thing too, that the magazine industry generally is dominated by Peterson, Hot Rod, Carcraft. Although those days are over, Carcraft, they're gone. But
they're all gone. Everything's gone.
But it used to be, if you wanted another perspective from, the other side of the record, so to speak, the B side, whatever, you'd grab New York magazines. And those were the ones that paid a lot of attention to those New York firefighter, Hemi powered, even Boss 429 powered.
Everything.
Yeah.
You name it, they had it. They built the craziest contraptions, and these guys were seriously hardcore nuts. I mean, you're talking about like an 8-second quarter-mile car, and there's like 4 guys hanging off the back of it with ladders and hoses and everything else.
Yeah. And it wasn't about racing. It was about getting from a starting point to a finishing point, unloading the ladder and then running up the ladder. So the vehicle was only used for like 100 feet or something like that, but it was designed to sprint as quickly with slicks. And, do they even do that anymore? I think maybe. I don't know.
As far as I know, they still do it. And that A990 car is still active. Wow. As far as I know, I'm gonna have to look into that, but I'm pretty sure it still goes on.
And speaking of which, I remember dissecting that article and really looking at it, and they really took an A990. It had the seat, it had the radio delete, and push button the column stuff.
Right. They just hacked this thing apart, and there it is. Fire truck.
Yeah, where did the doors go?
I still remember seeing it on the Wide World of Sports.
Okay, what's 60? Okay, is that it's a pop-up ad, or what is that?
Oh, okay. This is Super Chat.
Somebody. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So a lot of times viewers will want to and they'll throw some cash. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. So it was part of the. That's cool. Wide World, probably in mid-70s, I would guess. Probably they televised that, but that's cool. But yeah.
There's no part then kicking in there. Thank you. This is literally the coolest YouTube live I've ever watched. Yeah. This is a cool YouTube live. This is this is really Steve's first foray into YouTube land. This is all new.
Without somebody saying, "Oh, action! Hey, welcome back." But we did do some stuff this past summer. COVID was an interesting thing. Motor Trend had this thing, working from home, And those we did do with a smartphone, and they're only on demand. But yeah, working from home stuff, so yeah, but less can be more. Usually I find that, well, like when I took pictures for magazines and stuff, I was the guy to just get it done. Don't wait for sunset. Just put the car in a shadow, dark place, get it done. And a lot of folks, they spend so much time, getting the lighting right and bringing in a whole bunch of strobes and stuff like that. That's a cover if you're doing like, the newest Suzu catalog. Yeah, you got to do that crap. But for me, it was just like if the light's decent, just shoot the damn car and get it done. Put it up on a lift at a car wash and shoot it. If you can see the mufflers, that's good. Anyway.
You got some serious fans here, man. Mr. Will says Steve is cool as hell, right? Steve is definitely the shit. There you go. Very cool.
All right. Cool.
Feel the love, man. Feel the love.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
And in Fubar, who is one of our. Whoop, that's not Fubar. Where did Fubar go? Oh my God, what did I do? Anyway, yeah, Fubar just put up a link to your channel. He's one of our super mods. We've got John. So you know who they are, because I'm sure we're going to do this again. You've got Fubar, John Wilbur, Zero, right? At Zero, he's one of our guys, and Ari. So there are 4 people who they basically take rotation, and they're like they're like my guardian angels. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't ask for them. They just dive in here and they help keep us. They keep the bad mojo away. You know what I'm saying?
And it is a circle too. People say, "Hey, thanks for watching." It's a circle. It's nice. Yeah.
Thank you, FF. I appreciate that.
And what does the $5 bill mean? What is that? And the 10 and the 5?
They sent the $5 super chat.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So when you start doing your own lives, people will actually throw you money. It's a thank you for the entertainment.
Wonderful. That's a nice thing.
Or if you're building a project, if you're working on something, they'll help support the project like that. If let's say I start building an engine, we're talking about the engine, people will jump in there and here's $50 towards pistons, here's $20 towards gaskets, or whatever it happens to be. That's the difference between YouTube and the world that you're coming from. This is a community thing.
Yeah, I will say one thing. When I got to Hot Rod Magazine, right, coming from Chrysler Power, making $100 a week, and working at swap meets where I'd pay myself between 2 and 6 if I was lucky. When I got to Hot Rod, Roller Garland said, "Okay, how much do you got to make?" I says, "Well, I got to make 30 grand." He goes, "How's 43 sound?" I said, "Well, yeah." So I was there for 7 years. I started at 43,000 and I left at 43,000 because Peterson got sold like 5 times, and we were told John Diana would come through and say, "Guys, we're gonna tighten our belts." But okay, but at the same time, you could build cars for dimes on the dollar, which was wonderful. But in the end, you can't eat a car. But with that said, it's nice that folks can step up and help if they choose to. That's cool, But anyway, Henry Rollins. I know who Hank is. I saw a black flag in Worcester at Ralph's Chadwick Square Diner, like in 1987. But no, the glasses. These things are kind of a tribute to Jim Thornton of the Ram Chargers, who used to wear these.
Okay, yeah.
And beyond that, I take a pretty thick prescription. So when I worked at Stage 5 Engineering, I was, drilling, pressing, dapping, and it was oily and greasy and shit. The glasses would slip down and fall off. But these things grab your head like they're bolted on. So that's what these are about. And they've kind of not become a trademark, but they're very convenient and they don't fall off your head. So, but Henry Rollins,
Yeah, you do have a Henry Rollins thing going on there, man.
Yeah, I guess I've heard that. I don't know. I've also heard Johnny Knoxville. Okay, okay. I don't know. I love Jackass is hilarious. I love those guys, but
So you're not covered with tattoos, are you?
I have one tattoo. This thing here, Scat Pack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That actually was. If you want to see that get put on, Mark Momstead, who is number 2 at Dodge, and anyway, he paid for this. Anyway, it was when the Scat Pack came back. I said, "Hey, I'd be happy to put that on my body." So we went to H&H Tattoos, where Kerry Hart, Pink's husband, runs H&H at the Hard Rock Cafe in Las Vegas. So he was there. We did a video where he didn't put this on my arm, but I said, "Hey, I'll put that on my arm." And the funny thing is, they let me drink vodka. They say that if you're drunk when you get there, don't do it because your blood's too thin. But you can drink, because I hate needles. I'd be a horrible junkie. But so basically, they're doing this thing on my arm and drinking vodka. It was all good. So anyway, I got to tell
you. So you brought up Jackass. Right. Oh, Aaron Hinkley said $5. Thank you, Aaron. I got to tell you, because you brought up Jackass and tattoos, I got to tell my tattoo story. Okay.
Yeah.
So I never got inked or anything like that, because when I was a kid, the first thing I thought of was no identifying marks or tattoo or scars. Right. So You know, because you never know what you got to be involved with, right? So, but anyway, make a long story short, as I got older, you know, and I mellowed out a lot. I was healing up from the motor. I had a series of, this is back in 1999. I had a series of motorcycle crashes where I was always in a cast and always on crutches. Like I was in cast on crutches, crashing yet another motorcycle. It was a period of time where I just was always on crutches, always in a cast.
Cast on a motorcycle. Okay.
Yeah, it was just a phase that I went through. Okay, so I had lost this tooth. I'm missing a tooth, right? And I never had it replaced or anything like that. And this was from a fight. It was actually a trophy that I lost this tooth. So you know what I mean? It's like, it's a reminder of a thing. Okay. So make a long story short, Jackass, now you got to picture this. Okay. I'm healing up now from yet another motorcycle crash. I'm sitting there. I'm whacked out of my mind on painkillers. I'm sitting there and I'm watching Jackass. And at the beginning of Jackass, they have the skull with the crossed crutches.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the skull is missing the same tooth that I am. I looked at this, and in my drug-addled mind, I'm like, I need that tattoo, and I need it right now. Yeah. So I went to every single tattoo parlor. This is like a spontaneous thing. I went to every single tattoo parlor that I could get to in that evening while I was in that frame of mind, and I couldn't get anybody to do it freehand. They all wanted to have the artwork. I said, I don't care what it freaking looks like. Just that's what I want. Oh no, we can't do that. and that was my one and only close call with a tattoo.
Yeah. I will say it was kind of funny. I'm sitting there for 3 hours getting this done, and it wasn't too bad, but it's kind of funny. There were certain, you know, I have a low thyroid, right? So I get blood drawn from time to time. And I tell the nurse, look, lay me down, because a couple times I'm feeling, what's that cold thing? Oh, it's the cement on my face. I fell on the floor. That actually happens. So I hate needles. I can get cut and stuff, but I hate needles. So anyway, but while I'm sitting there doing this, I was drinking the vodka, it made it easier. But some areas in your arm light off in pain for no good reason. It's kind of weird. But it was 3 hours of wanting to get up and run. So this is the one. I'm good. So folks get them on their face and stuff. I mean, hey, good for you. But you know, some folks maybe don't have nerves. I don't know. But I was just like, youch. Anyway.
Joe Case says I got beat up in a fight just like DeSoto. I didn't get beat up, man. It was a thing that happened, and I got hit in the face. You remember the of course you do, but cars used to always have bumper jacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was somebody who was involved in a fight that I knew who this person was, and this person had a lot of, let's say, clout. And I saw this fight going on, and I jumped in and I got him out and took on the fight for myself. And I got hit in the face with a bumper. Somebody picked up a bumper jack and swung it like a baseball bat, and it got me in the face, and it knocked that tooth out. Jeez. But that tooth earned me privileges.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it was like a get out of jail free card.
Okay. So don't replace it, because that's the yeah, I get it.
It's not. It's a throwback to a different lifestyle, a different time.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. I've probably been in 7 fights in my life, and 5 were with my brother when I was 9. You know, I don't know. Lawyers, there's lawyers everywhere. You can't fight anymore, which is fine. But yeah. Some people you want to fight, but you can't. So you just walk anyway.
I'm the world's biggest puss now. I just run away. Anybody who gets mad at me, I just run.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Let's see. Michael Morrow keeps asking this, right? Steve, do you still have your high school, college street race Xerox flyers?
I do. They're in the garage right now. But yeah, back. Well, I got to say, you did a taillight spotter's guide, and
I did
because those inspired those flyers, right? So I had a 64 Polara, which I called the Polara Bear. It wasn't painted on it, but a buddy of mine, this guy Tracy Cormier here in North Brookfield, had a Chevy Chevelle Malibu with a 383 stroker, and he used to wear one of those 383 emblems. Dude, that's not a 383. It was a Mopar emblem that he put on his car, you know what I mean? But it's a Chevy Smolar. Anyway, his car hauled ass, and it was usually car length ahead of me. But anyway, we'd call each other out on the weekends, and I would go to the copier store. I'd make a hand-drawn thing with taillight spotter's guide, you know, and I put a picture of the back of the Polara. This is what Tracy's going to see this weekend if he races the Polara Bear. Be there at Route 67 at midnight, you know, Match Race Madness. So we'd make these things and hand them out to our buddies, and the taillight spotter's guide largely was responsible.
Well, I'll tell the story that the taillight spotter's guide. I was working for Cars Illustrated magazine, and you know how you couldn't go street racing because of magazine affiliations. Well, I used to get paid to go street racing. That was my thing, right? So my job was to take test cars. There you go. My job was to take test cars, you know, the new cars of the day, and take them around to all these different street race spots and do the thing, right?
Go Oldham back in the, you know, put the car to the test, or Jim Wanger's on Woodward. Yeah.
Right. Only I was the 1980s version of that. So I had every factory muscle car that they made in the day, and I had a reputation to protect too, because like I was known all through the New York area. So anytime I'd show up, it's like, oh, it's the magazine guy. He's going, go get the magazine guy. So we did everything we could. Like we were serious about making these cars run. Okay, so I get okay. So I had a T-type. And we were the first person to put the T-type, the Buick turbo car, in the 13s. We're in a 1385 way, and I owned Fountain Avenue with this thing and the Global Docks in Bayonne. So the very next car I get, and by the way, this whole time I'm actually blacklisted from the press pool.
Yes.
I don't have a driver's license. My license was like permanently revoked in the state of New York. So I was blacklisted from the press pools. So other people used to have to go check out the car from the press pool, sneak it to me, and then I would take it for a few nights, and I would run around and do the story and give the car back. So they give me this Pontiac GTA, okay, and it's like right after the Grand National, and I'm like I'm on top of the world. It's like, you know, this is you know, we're hitting. And they give me this GTA. It's a 350 Pontiac GTA. And this thing wouldn't run if you dropped it out of a tree. You could drive it off a cliff and still get gapped by an ice cream truck. So I take this thing out and just embarrass myself with it. So I end up writing this story for Cars Illustrated called ZZ Stop, making a slow motion run to Yorn City in Pontiac's excitement machine. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And as a sidebar, we did a taillight spotter's guide. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Show them the taillight spotter's guide.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. I haven't seen that in 40 years. Yeah. Okay. So we put this in there, and those are all of the cars that's how you would identify the competition. If you were driving, if you went on board a GTA, you know, and you want to know this is what the taillights of this car look like. This is what the taillights of that car look like. And so you knew what was beating you.
Yeah, you know, there's talk of, you know, not to blow you, Tony, but like there's talk about, you know, like Alex Wallardy or you know, Roger Huntington, whoever, great writers, great basketball. But you wrote for the T-type, you'll probably need some super sophisticated military optical equipment to identify a Buick Regal Grand National's taillights from a GTA's driver's seat. Better yet, don't even waste your rear rubber taking on a turbocharged Buick unless you're measuring losing in light years. Holy shit. I mean, that was cool shit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there it is. And, yeah, right.
That was the fun. It's hard to explain to people today. You know, that's what life was like in New York in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. It was just street racing all the time, every day, every night, everywhere, with everything. We just raced and raced and raced and raced and raced. And then I started doing magazines, and I got paid to go out and race and race and race and race and race.
Yeah.
What was okay? Wait, we got a super chat here from Mac Grindell. This is the coolest duo I've seen on YouTube in a long time. Sir, thank you so much, Mac. I appreciate that. That is going to go towards whatever I gotta throw at Plan Z. We've screwed around with Plan Z. You know, have you seen that car?
Plan Z, and I have not. I got to tune up. I got to catch up, dude.
It's a gutted 67 Dart with a Slant 6 that I built, and I built it over the winter, the motor over the winter, and it's just been parked, and I've got to run it in Sykeston, Missouri on the 5th. So I'm starting to sort the car out, and I just took it out for the first time today and tried to do a couple burnouts with it. You know, it's a little shaky. The car wants to be all over the place, and it's just piss and tranny fluid. So Mike, that's going to go towards transmission fluid and gaskets, whatever else I need. Thank you so much, sir.
Someone's asking about aluminum Slant 6 head.
Okay, hang on. Where is it?
Rocker Dart Dude.
Rocker Dart Dude. Okay, there we go. Steve, can you tell us more about the aluminum Slant 6 cylinder head? Do you still have that all aluminum engine? You have a Slant 6 aluminum Slant 6 head?
I did. I did. One of the beautiful things about working at Hot Rod magazine was that you reached an audience, well, I would say unlike any other, you know. So I did a piece on Doug Dutra's reborn Hyperpack intake manifold. He started it himself, and then Clifford Performance picked up the ball and ran with it. So basically the Hyperpack was back. So I did a hey there, check it out. And also I think a thing on the aluminum slant six I found in a junkyard in California, you could actually find them here and there. And if you didn't know, the slant six is generally made of cast iron, but the initial plan was to do them in aluminum because that was the space age metal of the late 50s, early 60s. Chrysler said this Corvair is all aluminum. 215 Buick, Pontiac Olds is also aluminum. We got to do the slant six in aluminum too. So that was the original plan. The SAE papers back it up. But the reality was there's a lot of scrappage with the die casting process. So as a result, the aluminum blocks are only available 61 and 2, maybe 50,000 made.
50,000 of them.
At the same time, aluminum heads were evaluated. And when I did this piece on the aluminum block and hot rod, a guy named Gary, I forget his last name, but from Kokomo, Indiana, said, I used to work at the Kokomo Forge and Foundry Division, went to a yard sale of the former plant manager, found 2 aluminum slant 6 cylinder heads, not blocks, heads, prototype stuff in the sale. Do you want them? Yeah. Gary Heffling. Gary Heffling was his name. He's still out there. Gary, thank you. You did a great thing. So anyway, I got 2 heads, an aluminum block, a bunch of lifters, a lot of weird stuff for like $1,000. Fine. It came on a pallet one day to the Peterson shipping office. So I had to load all that stuff in my car, take it off the pallet, unstrap it and stuff. Long story short, the 2 heads were cast aluminum. They had 1960 castings. One was 003, 005. All the pictures are, if you Google aluminum slant 6 cylinder head, there should be some, because I did a bunch of magazine articles that went online. So sniff for aluminum slant 6 Steve Mags, whatever it is, aluminum head. And so one of them had been run, it had carbon in it, so it was definitely on a running engine. And in Bill Workman's SAE paper on the slant 6, he refers to that program. So they were very real. So anyway, I did finally build an all aluminum slant 6, aluminum block, aluminum head, special aluminum gasket. It worked. It was good. It went into a 62 two-door Valiant. And if you go to Hemming's classic car, maybe 1909 or 2005 or 6, they did about a 5-page feature on that car with its all aluminum engine. So there was actually a feature on it. I was building some funny cars. I put it on eBay and a guy bought it for $7,000. And it was I was thinking at the last minute, they'll go for 7, 8, 9, 12, 14, maybe 14, maybe, but it was a slant 6 Valiant. You know what I mean? Even it was aluminum slant 6. A guy in Australia buys it. I got him, Dave, who I know, he buys the car. So it's in Australia now. But all aluminum slant 6, and it ran, but I treated it like it was made of glass. I never beat on it that much because, but it ran well.
Right. It's irreplaceable.
You had manual steering, but it felt like there was no engine in the car. It was wonderful. But yeah, there was aluminum heads. Yep, there was 2. And then Dutra got the second one, and he still has it in Sunnyvale, California. And Doug Dutra is Dr. Dodge. He's kind of the slant 6 guy. And he has the other one. And the word is that someday he might make a head, but it's been 20 years, So maybe he will. Hopefully he will. I don't know. So that's the story on that. Yeah.
I did a show on somebody else's channel last night, and we were talking about design things. Yeah. So I don't know if Zero Data was on that channel watching that, but this is a good question.
Yeah.
This is what we were talking about last night. In Steve's opinion, in the muscle car era, who had the better engineering design, Mopar or GM?
Well, I'll say that General Motors had the potential to do amazing things. And we all know that in 1963, they cut their own wrists, as it were, with the anti-performance edicts, anti-threat. There was antitrust legislation coming their way. They said, retract the periscope, get a low profile. But as you know, Pontiac and Olds and Buick all had Hemi programs coming. Chevrolet, of course. So had they unleashed these doomsday weapons, Tom Hoover and his band of geniuses would have looked pretty puny, I think, if the General had launched their overclass of B-52s over Hamtramck, you know what I'm saying? But I think really Chrysler, to buy a GTO with 9.5-inch drum brakes, are you shitting me? GT Roadrunners, 11-inch drums. You know what I mean? A Dana 60, an 8 3/4. But GM always shortcut. They had these crappy brakes, dumb little rear axles and stuff that you couldn't really take seriously. The cars were beautiful to look at, well marketed. But in the case of the GTO, I always say that it was a station wagon engine. If they put a 421 Super Duty engine in the GTO, that would be some cool stuff. But so Chrysler absolutely had far better intent in their engineering. The Max Wedge program, holy smokes! That's quite a thing to have a car with open exhaust and all that was readily available in 4-doors if you wanted, all 12 people or whatever it was in 62 and 3. But GM had beautiful cars, great marketing. But for me, Chrysler, they didn't insult people with 9-inch drum brakes on a 400 horsepower car.
You talk about the aluminum motors. AMC did an aluminum straight 6.
I've had
people have never heard of.
Yeah, Jarvis Doller, Division of National Lead. I had one. They're interesting. And in fact, it was the standard engine in the big AMC Classic in 62 and 3. So they're kind of out there. Trouble is, like the aluminum slant six, they have an open deck. Pull the head off. There's the bore standing free. And the trouble is, the top of the bore starts to rot away from corrosion, and you would never pinch the bead on the gasket and seal it. Head gasket blowing machine. When they were new, they were cool. But
well, it's an electrolysis process because the stainless in the head gasket with the aluminum and the steel liner, as the antifreeze deteriorates, it becomes acidic, and it creates electrolysis, and it etches out the metal around where it would seal. That's the biggest problem in all of those 1960s aluminum, the Slant Sixes and the AMCs. And you go even like the Vega motors, which were the same basic situation. They all had that same problem where at 3 years or 4 years, they'd start to eat head gaskets because people didn't stay on top of the antifreeze.
Yeah. The funny thing is, today we should be having that same problem, but I think that, antifreeze technology is
right. Exactly. They changed the coolant. They changed GM for a while, but before they started reformulating the coolant, GM used to have these pellets that you would put. It was actually, I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but like when the North Star came out, the North Star was known to be a porous casting, and it would actually sweat antifreeze. Wow. So General Motors had these pellets. There was actually a tree root. I forget what the name of the root was. And you'd break these pellets up and you'd shove them into the radiator, and they would find the
eucalyptus.
I don't remember. Somebody else say the name of it, and I'll remember. Definitely wasn't eucalyptus.
Okay.
Mexican Spec, who's one of our regular guys. What kind of videos would Steve be making for his channel going forward? That's a great question.
Well, that's a good question. In my mind, I say to myself, well, I gotta keep the ball rolling with Roadkill's Junkyard Gold and have these high production value junkyard trips. I think the reality is it probably will be. I'll be going to local junkyards, just giving cars a voice, pointing out weird stuff. There's a few yards around here. They're cool, lo-fi stuff. Because again, I don't have a drone, I don't have a sound guy, I don't have a whole crew, and so probably it'll be some junkyard. Maybe some just walking through the house. Hey, let's build a model car, or do like let's do a little thing on Johan models, or what's cool today, and just super groovy stuff. Today's super groovy topic. Let's talk about, or even coins. I'm a big coin collector, and one of my favorite things is, believe it or not, lucite art with coins, this kind of stuff. And if you use acetone, you can actually get the coins out of these things if you're that desperate for 14 cents. But in some cases, there's a rare coin inside of one of these things, and if that happens, you can actually freeze that thing, put it in a vise, and start drilling it. It'll shatter, not in 1,000 pieces. But I'm also a fan of just weird coins like this thing right here. Here it is. Hang on. There we go. That is a nickel. Hang on, let me find the focal point. But it's known as a mint error. And yeah, so I like weird stuff like that. So, maybe we'll even talk like, here's a double-sided $50 right here. It's tails on both sides. And you might say, how the hell did that happen? Well, if you lathe the bitch, then you can slice it and dice it and turn it into a magician's coin. So anyway, I guess I don't know if you can see it. There we go. The focal point's better here. But anyway, so maybe, I don't know, coins, cars, anything, everything. I don't know. Some part of me says I gotta do Junkyard Gold again. Well, maybe we'll build up to that. But again, it costs money to go into the yards and do this stuff. So
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Wait, first I just want to say I want to thank D. Scaglione for his $4.99, we're both keeping the oldies alive and educating the newbies. We just got another one here. Where is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, CJ, thank you, CJ Yeager. CJ Yeager. Okay, it's hard to read that. Thank you, sir. Steve. Matthew. Thank you. You have 2 transmissions to choose from for a Slant 6 D150, a 3-speed Saginaw, and an 833 overdrive. Which would be better for a 225? Is a stock 74 engine.
You know the answer, Tony. Overdrive, right?
Yeah, definitely go with the overdrive. That's a great transmission. You'll love it. It's born for the Slant 6 in a driver car.
Yeah, I will say one thing about those. When I was at Hot Rod, I think it was, 2003, I had a Duster that I put a Slant 6 in with nitrous oxide, and I used a overdrive. But the trouble with that was the 309 first gear was great off the line, and then you hit second, so the space between the gears that kicks the motor in the nuts and it slows down, unless you got a nitrous model.
Right, exactly. Thanks. So, see, I have an 833 overdrive in one of our for Project Bottle Rocket, and the whole point with that thing is eventually it'll run on night. I'm still trying to sort the car out normally aspirated, but when it runs on nitrous, that was the whole point behind going with the 833 overdrive, because that big step down and then a long second gear is a perfect time to blast that thing out with nitrous and go.
Yeah.
So,
if you have a crutch.
Steve, what's your favorite rock band?
Well, I got to say it's funny. I prepared for this a little bit. I had no idea, but my first record I ever bought in my life, Disraeli Gears by Cream. At Strawberries in Worcester in 1978. So I was 14, and right at that time, disco was a thing. And I'm like a geeky 14-year-old kid. I couldn't do that crap. And no, you know what I mean? So I kind of began in like acid rock, Jimi Hendrix, Country Joe and the Fish, stuff like that. And I still have all these records from then, Country Joe. And I know every song on this album, Electric Music for Body and Mind, and Give Me an F, that whole thing. And, so I really appreciate 60s rock. I mean, Doors, Hendrix, Cream, certainly all of that stuff.
You got to have some MC5 there, yeah?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them, but, I don't know. I never heard on, but yeah, MC5, but early Iggy, that kind of thing. And then you get into the 80s, and I did a semester in Scotland in 1985 and 6 and discovered Echo and the Bunnymen, Susan and the Banshees, the Smiths, stuff like that. I was never a big Springsteen fan. I don't know, Led Zeppelin, The Who, early Elton John is damn good stuff. Early, before 73, 4. And today, Oasis, The Stills, a lot of Supergrass. I love Supergrass, great band. So anyway, yeah, so I like rock. I'm not a big rap or country guy, but hey, to each their own.
Ginger root. Stephen King says ginger root is, those pellets are made out of, for the GM cars, they were made out of ginger root.
Okay.
I want to go back and talk about Junkyard Gold for a minute, right? And you're talking about financing Junkyard. Listen, here's what I want to do. When we're going to figure out how to do this before the end of this year, okay? You and I are going to go hit a junkyard.
I would love that. The thing is, here's the thing, for too long, and I'm not stalling for but so many times the barrier to getting good content to the audience is the decision makers who aren't qualified to be decision makers. I hate
obviously.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Cut out the fucking middleman, pardon my French. You know what I'm saying? So I think that'll be my plan, because it's so frustrating to have people say, hey, when's the next Junkyard Gold? I say, well, it's been canceled for 2 years. They go, what? Yeah. I sometimes say, oh, thanks. We're doing more soon, because I don't know what to tell people. The reality is it's been gone for 2 years, and nobody ever told me why. And that's fine, whatever, but so be it.
No, we're going to bring it back. You and I are going to hit a junkyard. We'll figure out the logistics, right? Wherever it happens to be. I got your gas money, whatever it's going to cost you to get there, I'm paying for it, brother, man. And we are going to hit a junkyard together, because it's like my adult show business fantasy now is to do an episode of Junkyard Gold with the master of Junkyard Gold. Can we make this happen?
Sure, of course.
We're going to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to set this up, and we're going to make this happen.
Count me in. One thing I will say is, I'll be the first to tell anybody and everybody, if you watch me at Barrett Jackson, you'll see my mic in the right hand, a notebook in my left. Okay. The notebook contains notes that I make for myself the week before the auction, because when the GTO with the 3-speed manual shows up on the block, I don't want to know about it then. I want to know when it's coming up. So I can say, hey, chassis cam, check this out. This is the cast iron Ford TNC heavy duty 3-speed with the floor shift. The light duty 3-speed, they were available with a column shift. So I have these notes beforehand. Likewise, when I go to the junkyard, I would always fly out there 2 or 3 days before anybody showed up. I would scout the yard, gather the cars, and when the show was first on, it was just me wandering through the yard, which was good and bad. The good was that it was, surprise, look what we found. The bad was that when they came to writing descriptions about the show, there was no theme, no connective tissue. So there was a mandate for 2nd and 3rd seasons, which I fought at first, but I'm so thankful for now. Chris Reed, thank you, the director who produced it. He says, you have to have a theme. Like, no, but yeah. I used to say it was like going to the beach and riding every 3rd wave.
The themes were good. The themes definitely added to it.
So I go to the junkyard and I'd find all cop cars. Well, it depended on what the yard had. The yard would grow out of what the theme would grow out of what the yard had. So I had to be passive. So I'd go there, look at this, all cop cars. Well, shit, there you go, cops and robbers, So I will absolutely prepare and make notes, because I can go to the junkyard and freewheel and whiz and stuff like that. But as far as production numbers go, I don't know that stuff. You look it up. But you find out because it's important when when you find a a 62 Dodge police car to know that the second digit's a 9. That means it's a fleet police car. I just bought one of those, by the way. And
those were built on taxi package floor pans, weren't they?
Well, here's the thing. With that. I mean, the taxi pack. There were some long wheelbase Dodges and raised floors and stuff that Hearst did, that kind of stuff. But before all of that, the police cars until 1962, when there was a specific police designator in the VIN. Before that, like 55 through 61, the police and taxi shared the same code. In other words, a taxi car and a police car, you couldn't tell a difference unless you looked at it. Usually a 6-cylinder in the taxi and 4 doors in the cop car would have a big block or something like that. But fleet and fleet cars and police and some other thing. But yeah, the code for a cop car came along in 62 or 3. But anyway, so long story short, I make my
in the 80s when the Mopar thing started getting crazy and the people were all over Hemi stuff, they needed Hemi stuff. I made a lot of money hunting down taxi package cars. Because the 26 cars had the direct drive starter.
Oh.
Clocked differently, but everything you need is there for a 66
4-speed
Hemi car. And I used to go buy these things for like $5, and you get like 300 for them. This was in the 80s. That was like some serious scuttles. Oh, we got another super chat here, but I don't see it. It's not up on here. I have to scroll up. I'm scrolling all the way up. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Bill Brasky. Okay. Steve, Bad Seed was my favorite magazine article. I'm building a dirt cheap LM7 Chevette now.
Yeah. Yeah, the Chevette's a great little car. I mean, it's very basic. It's rear-wheel drive, which is very important,
Mark Harvespian. Ginger or Marianne?
Well, I've always kind of been a brunette person, so I think that would be Marianne. I think, right? I don't know my Gillian that well.
Everybody chooses Marianne.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Just like Betty or Wilma. Everybody goes for Betty.
Right. Well, like to me, Selma Blair is one of the most attractive actresses. You know who she is? She's just she was in Cruel Intentions, but she's a pretty girl. That's a great looking gal. Anyway, that's me.
All right. Steve, we're down to like we usually run 2 hours. We're down to like our last 10 minutes here now. But we will definitely. Oh, Brian Sabia, thank you, sir. Okay, Michael Morrow keeps asking this question. I have no idea what this is about. Steve, can you fill us in on your relationship with Hemi Head Fred and why you decided against the 68 Roadrunner you were working on, or why you spent $10,000 on a better condition 68 Hemi Charger?
Well, interesting. Yeah, well, back in the 80s, when Hemi cars and all cars started to go crazy in price, I wanted to buy a Hemi car. And I remember 10 grand was kind of the price of entry for a decent Hemi car. So a friend of mine, fellow Fred Lee, he's a good guy, lives in Belchertown, Mass. He's got a bunch of Hemis, and he bought them when they were $500 used cars. Brilliant. And he sat on them. He still has a lot of them. So back in 87, I was going to buy a 4-speed Hemi Roadrunner from Fred for 10 grand, right? And my grandma had passed away, left me exactly that amount of money. My dad had no clue. He would have killed me. But anyway, so I worked with Fred on fixing this car up, and halfway into the thing, I found a 68 Charger that was more complete. So I decided to buy the Charger because it was a running car. The Roadrunner still needed an exhaust, had a bad tranny and stuff like that. So yeah, I had a Hemi Charger back in the 80s, a real one, XS29J8B1977, whatever the heck it was. And I sold it for $16,000 after owning it for 3 years. So, I was okay with that. I took the $6 grand profit and built a Max Wedge clone and lost $6 on that, but it was fun. But that car cured me of the need to have a perfect anything, because as soon as you have a perfect Ram Air GTO or perfect anything, you worry about scratches and scrapes and blowing up the engine. I like stuff that's kind of raw, and I'm okay with clones and replicas as long as they're described that way and you pound on them.
And tribute cars.
Yeah,
but people can't understand. Like we bought a running driving 66 Hemi 4-speed satellite, for $600. Drove it home. I bought a 66 Hemi, a 71 Hemi Super V. Motor was out of it, but it was a $600 car, rust-free, straight, perfect, all there. Just they pulled the motor like a dragster.
Was that the Osciero fight?
Yes.
Now tell me, here's the thing.
It takes too long now to tell that story, but we will on another one. Diego Jimenez, thank you, sir. Need metal 500 pennies, but I have no loose side.
Yeah, these things are kind of this is a stack of $100. This is actually a real thing, and it's a loose side.
No, I didn't.
So I don't know. It's kind of weird, but
hang on, I missed one here.
CHP.
Where is it? It's from Mr. Will.
Yes.
Steve, what do you know about California Highway Patrol police cars? I have a 76 car in at CHP. Have only seen one other one in 10 years.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, they were mostly built, I think, in Delaware, and also the P in the first spot of the VIN, police car. And they were cool. CHP, any kind of cop car is an amazing thing. As we all know, they're basically muscle cars with 4 doors. And the Coronets, a lot of those had 360s, 400s, and 440s. It was the only time a B-body 4-door could be had with a 440 engine. So the mid-70s Coronet CHP cars are cool. Yeah. And sadly, I mean, they're not going crazy with money, which is good. It means you can buy them, you know. So anyway, yeah.
Andy is a buddy of ours. Unity Motorsports Garage says, "Man, I hate to have missed this. I'm a big fan."
And are these reruns, Tony? Is this when it's gone, it's done, or
no? This is going to be up. I'm going to leave this up. A lot of times we take them down, like our Wednesday night. Okay, every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, Dallas and I do that AHR or the tech thing, right? We leave that up. Dallas also has his own channel, the AHRA Drag Racing History channel, and and the 3 of us are going to get together and do something on early funny cars. Yeah. And I believe we're going to do that sometime this week. You guys got to schedule that?
Yeah, well, I go to Roadkill Nights on Friday, and then on Saturday, as you probably know, in Pontiac, Michigan, Roadkill Nights has street racing on Woodward Avenue, and I'll be doing a 9-hour podcast. I think I'm not sure where, but I'll be back on Sunday. So next Monday or after, sure, we can.
Whenever you guys work it out, whenever it's good for you. And what was I going to say? So we leave that up, the Wednesday night show. The Sunday night show is generally a lot of banter amongst our, you know what I mean? So we take that down the next day. This will stay up as a permanent.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Hot Rod Hoarder. What a great channel. Do you know the Hot Rod Hoarder?
I don't. I got to get into it. Yeah.
You need to go click on that. You will love this guy. You love what he does. He's right up your alley. Exactly the kind of stuff.
Hot Rod Hoarder. All right.
The Hot Rod Hoarder. And Fubar here is just putting up a link to your YouTube channel. So you guys, right? We got 700. You got to be able to pick up 700 subs tonight, bro.
Nice.
Right.
And folks sign up.
Anybody who's on here now who hasn't already gone over to Steve's channel and subscribe, ring the bell, do all of that good stuff. He's got a huge amount of YouTube stuff coming. He's going to take over YouTube. We're all going to have to stand back as little beings and look up to Steve and salute him for what he's about to attain on YouTube.
Well, it takes a team. It's good and bad. In my world, it always takes a team. But with that said, thank you for the help, and it's a circle. We'll all do it together.
Exactly. The rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
Right? Mopar Den, thank you, sir. He's very generous with us. Starting the gasoline travel fund for Uncle Tony and Steve Magnante collaborations. See, so there you go. That's what we're going to do. We'll do a couple of lives, and that'll fund. I'm gonna get you fired up on this thing, and then you're gonna take over and run like a rocket. Right. You're gonna take over YouTube. I'm telling you.
I think my goal here is to continue giving cars a voice, and it's a bummer to have to wait for every Barrett Jackson auction every 4 months, 3 months, and then when Motor Trend calls, and it's a pisser. So yeah, I'll be happy to do more. Absolutely.
Mark Allen, thank you, sir. Uncle Tony is my dad's main channel, and I signed up with Steve, and I will get my dad signed up too. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of love there, man. A lot of love.
That's cool.
Somebody says if you and I do a Junkyard Gold, it'll be 1 million views. I think we can do that.
Yeah, let's do it, Tony. It's a thing where it takes a team. It's a thing where I've always been one of those guys who goes. I talk into the lens. After the lens, it's like I've never done that. I don't produce or direct or not. Actually, I don't edit. That's the thing. What to do with the raw footage? So I'll be happy to team up on things with people like you. Sure.
Do you see what you're doing right now? Right this very instant?
Yeah.
This is the entirety of what you have to do
It's
to make
wonderful. It's
YouTube.
honest. It's not scripted. You know, it is. Yeah, it's just the thing that people have dreamed of. I think probably since the Stone Age. You know, and here we are. We can do it, which is wonderful.
It's the truth. It's anarchy and chaos, and just run what you run, and may the best man win. That's YouTube.
Yeah, no middleman, no gatekeeper who doesn't have the right to keep the
No
game.
gatekeeper.
We've seen
Exactly.
that. You know.
Thank you again, man. Max Wedge preference, huge nostalgia superstock fan, love the B-bodies. What's your favorite Max Wedge?
Well, as we know, the 62 started it, and in fact, I'm about to build a 62 four-door Max Wedge clone, a Dodge Dart.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and it's based on a Texas police car that's raw. It's not rusty. It's just raunchy, but beautiful. No rust. But it's going to get a 512 and look like an old Maxi. Within a year, it should be done. But anyway, yeah. While the 62 is the opening salvo, I think the 64 aluminum car with a 4-speed is probably the pinnacle. And to be honest with you, make mine a 64 race Hemi sedan.
Well, 64 wouldn't have had a 4. 64 was only 3-speed.
Well, in 4, the 4-speed came along finally in the Maxi. In 62 and 3, the Borg, the T35.
Yeah, 63, right.
Yeah, but 64 was the year that the A833 was finally available, as you know, and
right, yeah.
Okay, but the push buttons are where it's at. That's my
the 60. Here's the thing, right? In my opinion, the 62 Max Wedge was actually the beginning of the true muscle car era.
Yep.
I know the GTO gets credit for that, but it was really the 62 Maxi, which was maximum motor in an intermediate sized car, right? And no frills, just like all go, right? I was born on May 15th, 1962, which is the day that the first Max Wedge rolled off the assembly line.
It's funny you should say that. I was born in July 14th, 64, and in July was when the race Hemis first turned up on the drag strip. So that was kind of, it's funny. And we think, and when I get changed $4.26, I geek out. I still do that. Yeah.
No, me too. I do the same thing. All right. Let's see. How does UTG get a real celebrity on? I had to pay him a lot. Are you kidding me? You know what this is costing my enterprise to get a big celebrity like this guy on here? Holy jeez. All right. So, Steve, we're going to wrap it up, man. We're at the 2-hour mark, right? We will do this again soon, within the next couple of weeks or so, because we got a lot of action, bro. There are 700 people on here, all want to talk to you. So you've got roadkill nights this weekend. What do you need to plug? What things going on that you want to tell these people about? Well, we still have 700 people on here.
Yeah, well, this Saturday, if you tune in, if you can be there, I know that I think it's sold out, but as we know, the Woodward Dream Cruise is this week coming up and next weekend and stuff. But anyway, this weekend it starts. The kickoff is at the M1 Concourse in Pontiac, Michigan, where Roadkill will be sponsoring street racing right there on Woodward Avenue. In fact, 2 years ago, Leah Pritchett ran her fueler down Woodward Avenue. I mean, it wasn't like a 300-mile-an-hour pass, but it's kind of cool. It's 150 cars. They line them up, and it's going to be a Hellcat challenge with gutted Hellcats, run what you run, funny car kind of stuff, But anyway, I'll be there from about 9 in the morning till midnight, narrating on the podcast what's happening. So when Richard Rawlings spins out the Hellcat again, I'll be there to say, hey, Richard, why do you have water on this thing? So, oh, look at that. He went round in the circle. Well, look at that. So anyway, I'll be doing that stuff for that on Saturday. And then after that, of course, Barrett Jackson, this time for the first time in Houston, Texas, middle of September, where the Connecticut show, which used to be in my backyard, went 5 years. Well, 4, COVID killed the 5th. But anyway, now they're going to do Houston for 5 years, and that begins this September. So, and after that, of course, I think maybe SEMA. But anyway, but yeah, Roadkill Nights. If you get a chance, either be there or watch the podcast or hear the podcast. It's an audio thing. There's no camera involved. But anyway, and then of course coming back to Uncle Tony's Garage.
And what about you? Your YouTube channel? You're uploading the Texas Mopar Horde.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Great Texas Mopar Horde auction event. If you go to my YouTube channel right now, you'll see 150 videos of me walking around and showing cars, and also some rattlesnake, dead ones, by the way. And yeah, so if you go to the YouTube channel right now, the content right now is 150 videos of me showing cars that will be sold at no reserve, by the way. And it's an all online auction too, by the way. So you don't have to go to Texas. Sit at your house.
It's got the videos really have the same kind of flavor as Junkyard Gold.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I know
that,
exactly.
you guys who are missing Junkyard Gold and that whole, like, I'm just going to chill and watch this guy. I'm going to nerd out with this guy on this stuff. Well, if you watch these Texas Mopar Ford videos, they're in that same spirit as Junkyard Gold.
I do a walking talk. It's the point of those is so that people, potential bidders, know what the car is and what it's not. So if and when they bid on it, they say, "Oh, he didn't tell me there's rust on that." So whatever, we show everything about the car. It's 4 minutes per car, and but keep in mind, if you want to buy a Mopar project car, there's going to be 260 really neat things that might go for $500. Who knows? It's no reserve. It's going to be scary, but cool. And a lot of these things are like 2-door posts, 63 and 4s, B bodies, a lot of that stuff.
It's a really eclectic collection.
Yes, yeah, and a lot of
this guy was all over the map.
Yeah, mostly like 55 through 70, but no Roadrunners, no Cudas. It's mostly B bodies and C bodies. Letter cars. Ever see a Chrysler 308 that was hit in the right rear corner in 1970 and parked? There's one of those. Yeah, that guy's no motor, but it's all there. The 150 Speedo, all that kind of junk. There's also one real quick. There's a 60 Plymouth 2-door post Savoy, big C body, 383 4-speed, 3-speed manual with a taxi VIN. Weird. And somebody's old weird Interceptor police car that turned into a drag car. That's for sale. It might go for 500. I don't know. But they're rust free for the most part. They're nice. They're Texas cars. So each one of these things is ready to become a project. So check that out if you want.
Wait, Kathy said there's another super shop popped up, but I don't see it. Oh wait. Okay, yeah, these guys are going to have either of you spoken to those who worked on the assembly line back in the day? I really haven't.
I know what you're saying. In Hemming's classic car, they have a thing called "I Was There" every issue, and it's a wonderful remembrance from a guy who worked the Philco radio plan to the guy from Kelsey Hayes or whatever it is. But in my opinion, people say, "Oh, Steve, you're an expert." I'm not an expert. I'm a student. I'm an enthusiast. The experts are the guys who did that stuff. Tom Hoover, the engineers. And I say that before, as these guys are passing, we got to get their stories, man, because these are the guys who know the difference between an air grabber stamping and a non-air grabber stamping on a 70 Roadrunner hood. Now they're similar but not the same. They added this insert to make that whole thing. Everything that's cool has a backstory, and the guys who did that stuff, we need to milk them. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. That's a project I'd like to work on, but it's tough. Because they're scattered, they're all over the place, and half of them don't care because it was just a day job.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. You talk to people who are deep into it. I'm the guy who actually found Mr. Norm Krause.
Yeah,
I was working for Collison over at Superstock about the same time that you were, and I know we were supposed to end this, but this is a quick story I got to tell, right? So Norm Krause is Mr. Norm for those people who don't know it. So this is 1995, 1996. And Collison, I'm hanging out over at his house. And he says, "Do you know Mr. Norm?" I says, "No." He says, "Do you know who he is?" I says, "His name is Norm Krause." He says, "Do you know how to get a hold of him?" I says, "I'll find out." He says, "I want you to do a story on Norm Krause. Do a whole thing on Mr. Norm." Said, "All right, fine." So at the time, I was tuning a couple of fuel cars nostalgia fuel cars out of the Chicago area. So I had to go there anyway. And one thing led to another. And I end up knocking on Norm Krause's door. I couldn't get a phone number for him, but I had an address. Yeah. And I end up knocking on his door, right? And he opens the door. He's wearing a bathrobe, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Yeah, my name is Tony DeFeo. I'm from Superstock and Drag Illustrated Magazine." He says, "Oh, okay." And he says, "They sent me to find you so I could do a story on you." And he's like, "Why would you want to do a story on me?" I says, "Bro, you're famous. I don't know if you realize it or not, but you're Mr. Norm." And he lit up. And he got dressed, and we went to a steakhouse. And from that point on, he became Mr. Norm again. And the very next day, he gave us a tour because the old showroom was still standing, and the warehouse across the street was still up. Wow. And he gave me and Brian Coleman. Do you remember that about 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer than that, there was a poster of a red altered wheelbase car with a blown Hemi doing a fire burnout?
Stunker took the picture, I think. Jeff Stunker took that picture.
Jeff took the picture. Well, he and I got the grand tour of, and we were diving. Steve, you had to be there to believe this. Okay, we go through the showroom, and there's all stickers and window things, and like the rearview mirror hangers, all still there. There's covered shed carpet. He's telling us we're standing in the middle of the showroom, and there's a spiral staircase in the middle of the showroom. And he says that's where he kept. The all-girl accounting department. and they all had a mini skirt dress code. Yeah, and he says on the weekends, he says that the place was packed with all of these guys just to watch the girls go up and down the spiral staircase, right? So he takes us across the street, and there's this warehouse that was part of the whole complex. Nobody ever talks about. And there were like small dumpsters all throughout it because the floors were empty, the shelves were empty, but there were dumpsters. And Brian and I went dumpster diving through these.
Throwing stuff out?
We're picking out brand new Hearst Competition Plus shifters like that had been sitting there since like 1972, 1973, because he went to Vans in like 73, and all the high stuff all ended up getting thrown away. The best part about it was he says, "Oh, I got something you guys will like. It's you want funny cars." So we go around the back of the showroom. There were like the service bays, and there was the Charger.
Gary Dyer's car.
Yeah, that was sitting there under a cover.
I read your story. I know the story. I remember that.
Oh, you read the story? Okay, yeah.
In the other room. Yeah. That's cool. So you put him back on the map, kind of. And then Larry Weiner, of course, they combined and they got the thing going and stuff, the Miss Norm's continuations. But that's cool. And he passed away lately. But these guys are going. Not to keep this going forever, but it's funny when you find stuff. I love old magazines. And recently, I purchased a collection of old super stock and hot rod stuff from a guy named Jerry Lettieri in Connecticut, a big collector of like Allards and weird old sprint cars, cool stuff. Anyway, this magazine collection comes to me. And the subscription label is for Howard Masellis, who was the second Hearst shifty doctor. And Howard's still alive, works at Moroso. But for years, he was at Hearst. And there's his, Howard Masellis, Pontiac, and in Royal Oak, Michigan, and in Warminster, Pennsylvania. So the shipping label, the subscription label to this guy who was a legend, but he's just a guy who thinks it's old car magazines. So it's interesting. I'm a fan first and foremost, and I'm thankful that you and I are both fans of guys like Mr. Norm, and we can give them another voice in a way and let them run with it, and it's great when that happens. Yeah, right on.
Yeah, that period in the 90s when I was working for Superstock and Steve was just, I got to contact all of these people who I idolized as a kid, like Tommy Ivo, who I still do. And to this day, I swear to God, Tommy Ivo was probably the most cordial, open, friendly person I have ever talked to. The guy is just absolutely first class in every way. Yeah, he's got a touch of ego, and people knew him as that, but he owns that, and that's part of his charm. That's part of his persona.
He likes to say it in his life. He got several trips to the wishing well.
Wishing well, exactly.
Exactly. TV.
Those words stuck in my head, and I've used it myself many times. Because I have had many trips to the wishing well. Most people on YouTube only know me as Uncle Tony, and they think that I just popped out of I just roamed in out of the woods and started this YouTube thing. They don't really
the other way around. I'm like, wow, DeFeo, one of the first Gonzo magazine journalists, if you will, is doing a YouTube channel. So it's kind of weird how we all come in from different angles, but it's freaking cool that you're doing this.
Yeah, but don't pull my cover. I want to just keep it as I'm Uncle Tony.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, brother man, thank you so much. This was fun. This was like the fastest 2 hours of my whole life. Yeah. We're gonna have to do this again soon. We'll get together. We'll talk on the phone, whatever. And we'll figure out the next time that we can, and we'll get a live going on your channel. You've got over 1,000 subs now, so we can start doing lives on your channel.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds great. Yeah.
So I'm gonna pack it in. Everybody who contributed with Super Chat, thank you so much. That's what keeps the wheels turning around here. Everybody contributed with good conversation, good vibes, all of it. Thank you equally. You have no idea how much we appreciate that. Our mods, the finest people that our species have ever spawned, right? Fubar, Ari, Zero, John, thank you guys so much. And that's it. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button and move forward. Steve, good night, brother man.
Thank you.